3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the palatial yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network here in beautiful New York City, sitting on top of the 10th floor of 345 Hudson Street. Welcome on in to another day, a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all of our great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, Channel 375, the free Odyssey app, and is, of course, always streaming on YouTube. 888-710-4ISN is the number to jump on in. That's 888-710-4476. You could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. You know, I don't like to be like other people here at times at the network, even though I had great colleagues and still do have really good colleagues. But there was someone once at the network that accused me of tinkering with the chairs in the studio, and it wasn't me. And I once said I would never lead a radio show, and it would be a disservice to the audience talking about chairs. Well, I may have lied to you guys, because the only other person that sits in this chair Monday through Friday is Andrew Perloff. Unless if somebody else fills in. Because Perloff and I, we sit in the same chair. Bill Ryder is in L.A. You then have Rich Eisen on the West Coast in L.A. You have your boy Zach Gelb here in New York City. Then you have JR in Atlanta. You got Bart in Milwaukee. And, even if you have a fill-in on the overnight, Perloff then still sits in this chair before I do at 3 p.m. Eastern time. You would think two tall guys would be on the same page, right? Perloff, tall guy. Your boy, a tall guy. I like the chair to be all the way up in these new chairs because it's better back support. And I didn't realize it when I sat down until the red light went on, but this chair is at the lowest it could be today. And it's very uncomfortable on my back right now. So I'm going to power through the next 15 minutes. This is going to be my flu game today for about 15 minutes in this segment because Alex Azarum is here, and he's doing a great job filling in for Stuart Kovac. Samter is here as well. But I don't want to raise the chair live on the air, and then Azarum filling in, doing a nice job. He has to then go scramble and hate my guts because then he would have to adjust the camera. So, Perloff, can you put the chair a little bit higher? Or, maybe I should just take my own advice from a few months ago and I could get in the studio a little bit earlier.
I just lowered my chair to support you.
Oh, thanks. You're a jackass. All right. Wonderful. In support. Oh, you lowered in support. I thought you were just being a jerk there.
Yeah, no, in solidarity.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So Azarum lowered his chair. Mike, your chair's all the way up. Why aren't you joining us? Lower the chair.
I get taller when I sit.
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, right now, I can barely even see you, Mike, because this camera is blocking your entire body right now. So, we're a mess right out of the gate. Now I can see you. If Mike's doing the double wave. Anyway, we got a whole lot to do today. We'll do a prospect profile. We'll highlight the Georgia players in the draft with former Georgia quarterback Aaron Murray. I'm going to start the show with the NFL draft. Don't worry. We'll do a ton of NCAA tournament talk just like we did yesterday. I'm back in on the Cleveland Browns. And when I say I'm back in on the Cleveland Browns, it's the discussion on what they should do with the number 2 overall pick. This has been the most frustrating discussion I've had for the last 3 weeks. Adam Schefter threw me into just a mental brain problem, into a tizzy, when it all started out with him saying right before the combine, hey, the thing he's most confident in is that there's going to be a quarterback taken by Cleveland with their first round pick. That's what he said. Then last week, he walked it back. So I still don't have a damn clue what the Cleveland Browns are going to do with the second overall pick. But the thing I don't get, and I could be a little hypocritical here, at the end of the college football season, I remember, ironically, we actually had Sean Marash on. And Marash was on, and I was asking him, who do you want the Giants to get in the draft? And we didn't know exactly where the Giants were going to be picking yet. I think it was with a week or two left in the season, to be exact. And he goes, I'm more of a Cam Ward guy than Shedeur Sanders. But he said, I would just want either or. His preference is Cam Ward slightly. If they get Shedeur Sanders, he wouldn't be upset. And I said, you know what? It's actually funny. I'm more of a Shedeur Sanders guy than a Cam Ward guy, but by a razor-thin margin. I have since shifted that opinion, but it's still by a razor-thin margin where now I prefer Cam Ward slightly, by the tiniest of margins compared to Shedeur Sanders. But it feels like nationally, in the national landscape, anyone that covers the NFL draft, it is Cam Ward over Shedeur Sanders and then some, which I can't get and I can't gather why it's such a disparity and such a big discrepancy and difference now between Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. And I still don't think the conversations are going to reflect the true meaning on where these guys get drafted. I think Cam Ward, one way or another, is going to be the first overall pick. If you put a gun to my head today, I'm saying Tennessee keeps the pick. Tennessee takes Cam Ward. Then with the second overall pick, even if Cleveland elects to pass on Shedeur Sanders, I think the latest he's going to go is the third overall pick. But people saying he's going to fall out of the top 10, I think is ridiculous. I think the absolute latest he's going to go is 6. but I really do believe he's going to go 3 at this point because I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to the Giants, and Russell Wilson is not going to prevent you from taking a quarterback with the 3rd pick. But, I could be wrong. So let's say if I am wrong and Cleveland and the Giants say we're not taking Shedeur, the absolute latest, I think, would be the Raiders with the 6th overall pick. But this idea that Jackson Dart is going to go before Shedeur Sanders is maybe some of the dumbest draft analysis I've ever heard. If Jackson Dart goes in the top 10 of the draft, I'd be stunned. Yeah, they should not use a top 15 pick on Jackson Dart. Quite frankly, with what I saw in college when I watched the games, I didn't think Jackson Dart was a first-round quarterback. And I've said this before. Later on in the draft, if you want to swoop in or you use a later-round pick, like if you're a Pittsburgh, I said Seattle, but now Seattle's probably out of it with Sam Darnold. But those are the 2 teams that I mentioned before the Sam Darnold signing did go down, that if you're like Seattle, if you're Pittsburgh and you get out of the top 15, all right, then you could register and then you could use a first-round pick on Jackson Dart, even though I wouldn't love it. But I could at least understand it. But I go through this draft order right now, and I don't see what others are projecting that Jackson Dart's going to go this early. I don't get it whatsoever. And if he goes before Shedeur Sanders, I will be irate because it makes no damn sense to me. Like in the Jackson Dart meter, let's start because he's not going in the first 3 picks, Tennessee, Cleveland, or the Giants. Teams that need quarterbacks. I don't see the Raiders taking Jackson Dart at 6. I don't see the Jets taking Jackson Dart at 7. I don't see the Saints taking Jackson Dart at 9. You keep on going. Like Pittsburgh at 21, potentially. Outside of that, who's the team that's taken Jackson Dart in the first round? And I think this is what we do when we sit here in the draft and we go up 3, 4, 5, 6 quarterbacks got to go. They all got to go. Quarterbacks go, 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 go. And last year at this time, to be fair, I didn't think Michael Penix Jr. would have been picked 8th. I thought J.J. McCarthy was going to go to the Vikings, so that one didn't surprise me. And I didn't have Bo Nix going 12. I thought there'd be 5 or 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round. I didn't think 6 would go in the top 12. So could teams get trigger happy? Could teams maybe pull the trigger earlier than where they should on Jackson Dart? I guess, as KG would say, anything's possible. But in terms of this case, I think last year was an outlier. 6 quarterbacks in the first round. I know we've seen other years where 5 go in the first round. But I also remember years when I was told Will Levis was going to be a top 5 pick. He fell out of the first round. I also remember a year where Malik Willis, right, and Kenny Pickett, they were going to be first-round picks. Kenny Pickett was. Malik Willis ended up going in the 3rd round, and there was a quarterback taken before him. He wasn't even the second quarterback off the board. Desmond Ridder was the second quarterback of that draft class. So I still sit here and I say, I feel confident in saying that Cam Ward, when we look at the quarterbacks, is going to be the number 1 overall pick. Then Shedeur Sanders, I think, will either go to Cleveland or the Giants. Then if there is going to be a 3rd guy in the first round, it's going to be Jackson Dart. But if I was a team, like I said, the only team that I'm like, okay, I can at least see it is Pittsburgh. But if Pittsburgh signs Aaron Rodgers, could they still take a quarterback? Yes. But wouldn't you rather use that 21st pick somewhere else to go all in for the year or 2 that you have left of Aaron Rodgers' career? So that's where I'm at with the NFL draft. Personally, I would not use a first-round pick on Jackson Dart and feel comfortable with it. I could feel good about using it with Cam Ward. I could feel good about using it with Shedeur Sanders. But I look at Cleveland because a lot of people feel Cam Ward 1, and then at 2, it won't be a quarterback, and it will either be Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter. And I know, hand up, I've changed my opinion on this about 3,000 times. And I'll probably change it 3,000 times more before the draft coming up on April 24th because you hear different things, and I say I shouldn't believe anything that I hear leading up to the draft, but then I vacillate on it. So here was Myles Garrett talking to my best friend in the podcasting world, Andrew Siciliano, on the best podcast available. That's the name of his podcast. Best podcast available with Andrew Siciliano. If you got to name it that, here's a little breaking news. It ain't the best podcast available. But anyway, this is Andrew Siciliano, who's now the Browns radio play-by-play man, interviewing Myles Garrett. And the topic of conversation came up. Hey, Myles, you're back. What about any assurances you got with what the Browns are going to do in this offseason to address the gaping hole at the quarterback position?
In all seriousness, do you know who the quarterback's going to be? I mean, do you have an idea?
After conversations, I do have an idea.
Do you like the idea?
I like it enough to be here smiling in front of you because I think we have a good chance of that happening and making the most out of it.
Can you tell us who it is, Myles?
You know I can't do that.
Let me tell you, I actually really enjoyed my conversation with Myles Garrett at the Super Bowl. But anything he now says, this is what I hear. Boop, 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 bleep. That's what I hear. How can I take this guy seriously? He's an all-time great player. He's a top 2 defensive player in the sport right now, and he may be one, right? That's always a healthy debate between TJ Watt and Myles Garrett. He's an unbelievable talent. But when you sit there on Radio Row and you do this tour demanding a trade and you're saying it's not about the money, you want to go to a winning destination, and then a bag gets thrown your way, and it was a bag and then some, $120-something million guaranteed, $40 million a year for about 2-3 weeks, not even, I think a week. He was the highest paid non-quarterback in the history of the NFL. Jamar Chase has now usurped him. So you had this bag thrown your way and all this, what I thought was genuine talk that you want to go play for a winner. It's not about the money. That goes right out the window. And once again, fine. Right? I'm never going to sit here. I would have preferred Myles Garrett to go somewhere else, but he's the one. I know he's delivering the hits, but he's the one that's putting his body on the line in a lethal game. So if he never wants to win, and if he just wants to go get the biggest bag of cash, I'm not going to crush him for that. But Myles Garrett sitting there saying he knows what the Browns are going to do. Well, the only way that you know what the Browns are going to do is if Andrew Berry told you, hey, with the second overall pick, we're taking a quarterback. And then you probably infer, okay, Cam Ward's going 1, so we'll take Shedeur Sanders 2. Outside of that, how would you know what's going to happen? You had Russell Wilson in the building. No contract was done. Why? Because Russell Wilson's waiting. Is there a trade brewing on the horizon for Kirk Cousins, who Kevin Stefanski knows very well back to their days in Minnesota? What's going to be? I don't think Jameis Winston is coming on back. So don't sell me, Myles Garrett, that, you know who's going to be the quarterback, and that's the reason why you signed. That's why you re-signed, and that's why you stayed. You may know who the quarterback's going to be, or you may not, but even if you do, it had no reason in why you elect to take that cash. You took that cash because it was a ridiculous amount of money, and you deserve it. But as I sit here today, 15 past the hour, on a March 18th in the year of 2025, Cleveland take a quarterback. Cleveland take Shedeur Sanders. I think Cam Ward's going 1. But Cleveland needs hope. And I know Cleveland fans will say, oh, but Shedeur may not be a generational talent. Oh, you can't risk taking a quarterback that early. You're Cleveland. You guys have taken 9,000 quarterbacks in the last 15 minutes. So you could roll the dice here, and you could risk using the second overall pick on another quarterback, and if it doesn't work out, guess what? You're in the same spot that you've been in for a long time. For a long time. We see that photo all the time of the jersey. They're running out of room. Yeah, you can't even fit it on the screen. You got a projector. You can't even fit it on it. So just take a quarterback here, because the Browns need some hope. Deshaun Watson was a disaster. He'll never play for the Browns again. There's no name on the free agent market that's going to get the fan base excited. Your fan base is tortured. Your fan base is abused. They could take the pain and suffering if it doesn't work out, because it never works out. So in this case, if you're Cleveland, if I'm Andrew Berry, if I'm Kevin Stefanski, and I see that Cam Ward goes 1, I'm taking Shedeur Sanders 2. You got nothing to lose. And even though I think Shedeur is just going to be a good quarterback in this league, you know what? If you're Cleveland, you would take just a good quarterback in this league. Or at least you should. You need some hope. Because in this league, you either have the quarterback or you don't. And I get it. I'm someone that believes that Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are the two best players in this draft. But we've seen Cleveland have a lot of great players that aren't quarterbacks. We've seen Joe Thomas. We've seen Myles Garrett. What did you win? You can't win in this league if you don't have a quarterback. So roll the dice one more time, take the risk, and draft Shedeur Sanders at 2. That's what I think the Cleveland Browns should do. Now, I did read before the show that season ticket holders were informed on draft night they're going to do a free concert for season ticket members. They're going to have Journey there. Don't stop believing. I'm not going to sing anymore because I think all of our listeners just tuned out. But anyway, I sometimes think I'm a better singer in my head, and then when I actually sing out loud, I'm like, yikes. And you just hear the nails on the chalkboard. And if we start to fade to black here in this segment, no, I didn't get whacked like Tony Soprano may have. But anyway, they're doing a concert for season ticket members the night of the draft. So, how are you going to have Journey playing, Don't Stop Believing, and then you maybe trade out of the pick or you take an offensive lineman? If you want people believing, no offense to Abdul Carter, I think he's the best player in the draft. No offense to Travis Hunter, who's the second best player in the draft, in my opinion. Those guys are really damn good. Those guys, I think they're going to be studs in the NFL. But if you want to believe in the NFL, if you want to believe in your football team, you need a quarterback. So, Cleveland has to, in my opinion. They may not, but if I'm running their team, they have to take a quarterback. You're in the second overall pick in the draft. I know people are going to say, well, they could be bad again this year, and maybe next year they could go get their quarterback. You don't know what the QB market's going to be. We've seen that. Carson Beck was supposed to be the number 1 overall pick for this upcoming draft this time last year. So that changes very easily. I know people say, oh, maybe a tank for Arch Manning. Well, if the Manning family once had Eli avoid San Diego to get to the Giants, why wouldn't they say, hey, Arch, avoid Cleveland to get to somewhere else? So you can't even tell me who they would draft next year. Shedeur is good. I think the Browns should take Shedeur Sanders. And if they don't, yes, they still may get a great player. As I said, I think Abdul Carter and I think Travis Hunter are the two best players in this draft. But you don't have a quarterback. And if you don't have a quarterback, you could have a great roster. Like we've seen the Browns have a very good roster the last few years. But if you don't hit on the quarterback, that good roster goes absolutely to waste. And it means nothing. What should the Browns do?
What's so good about Cleveland?
Oh, why do you have to do that? I like Cleveland. I love Cleveland. We got Ken Carman. We got Anthony Lima. We got the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm a big fan of Cleveland, Ohio. And the fans, too. And you know what? I saw renderings for that new stadium. I have to apologize to Kenny. I told Ken Carman he's a fake big guy when he was saying, oh, they need to put a dome on that place. The renderings for that new stadium, you know what? Looks pretty damn good. Looks pretty damn good to me. Anyway, what should the Browns do with the number 2 overall pick? 888-710-4ISN. 888-710-4476. We'll take a timeout. When we come on back, 5 coaches in the NCAA tournament that have the most pressure on them to win. I'll give you those 5 coaches. Next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
All righty, welcome back in. It is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I'll give you my 5 college basketball coaches under the most pressure to win in the NCAA tournament this year. But first, let's go out to the guest line, or the phone lines, 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4ISN. That's 888-710-4476, our new phone numbers. We did open up the show talking about the Cleveland Browns. I said they should draft Shedeur Sanders with the 2nd overall pick, assuming that Cam Ward is going to be the number 1 overall pick. Let's go to Connor in Ohio. He's first up on the Zach Gelb Show. Connor, what's shaking?
Hey, Zach, appreciate you taking my call. How are you?
Doing great. What do you got for me?
So I completely agree with you. I say the Browns should definitely take Shedeur in the draft. I feel like he's their best option. Maybe he'll definitely be a package coming, especially a package with Dion. Maybe it'll be good, maybe it won't be, but I think in the long run it'll work out. I don't think Jameis will probably be with them much longer. He's kind of flirting with the Giants right now, so we'll we'll have to see how that works out. But I just think they should take Shedeur, and that's probably the best option for them. Appreciate you taking my call.
Yeah, Connor, I appreciate it. And you get into the Coach Prime element of it, right? And that new contract with Colorado has not happened yet. So I look at, and I don't think that's a Colorado decision. I think that's a Coach Prime decision. But when you get to Coach Prime, I said this from the jump. I thought everyone overlooked this and misjudged this and viewed it the wrong way. Where they were like, oh, wherever Deion's going to go right away, Shedeur, or wherever Shedeur is going to go right away, Deion's going to go there. Or maybe Deion was going to leave this past offseason, and then that team would automatically be able to force Shedeur Sanders to go there. I've always said this, wherever Shedeur goes, the Deion conversation, the Coach Prime conversation, is not going to fade away. But I never thought that right away in his first season that Coach Prime was going to be with Shedeur wherever he goes in the NFL. But the moment that team struggles, which in all likelihood, if you're picking in the top 5 of the draft, then right, you go in the top 5, top 10 of the draft, you're a bad football team. And if you don't turn it around right away, or if that coach is on the hot seat, which most teams are, unless if they're just totally starting over with the new head football coach and had the first, second, third, whatever overall pick, you usually are going to have that coach on the hot seat. So, like, if you see Shedeur get drafted by the Browns, Kevin Stefanski, who I think is a good coach, and a 2-time Coach of the Year award winner in Cleveland. But it doesn't mean that there won't be that push if, let's say, year one, Shedeur plays, he's fine, but the coaching situation isn't ideal, or maybe it's ran its course. And let's say Cleveland goes 4 or 5 wins and they're back in the top 5 of the draft. Yeah, that conversation's going to be there about Coach Prime maybe going to the NFL. And notice Coach Prime a year ago was like, NFL not for me coaching. But then towards the end of last season, he said he would only go there if both of his sons are on the same NFL team. Which, wherever Shedeur goes, it won't be tough for Shiloh to follow him because not a lot of people think Shiloh Sanders is going to be this really good, highly coveted NFL player. So I've always said that I believe Coach Prime has a potential to go to the NFL, not immediately where Shedeur goes, but a year afterwards, because he's going to have to be a candidate if that job opens up wherever Shedeur does go. So good call right there, right out of the gate. Once again, our new number, 888-710-4ISN. That's 888-710-4476. I wonder how long it's going to take me to memorize the new number. The last number was so easy to remember, 855-212-4227. Right? But now I'm sitting here and taking behind the scenes. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces of paper with the number 888-710-4ISN. That's 888-710-4476. All righty. 5 college basketball coaches with the most pressure on them entering this NCAA tournament. In at number 5, I'm going to go with Rick Barnes. You don't know how many opportunities that you're going to get in the NCAA tournament more, especially when you're an older coach like Rick Barnes. He does not look like, right, an old coach whatsoever, but he is 70 years old. So you don't know how much longer, even though he looks pretty young, and he's kind of like been Pete Carroll, he's aged very well. But this has been someone that, yes, I know that he was in a Final Four back in 2003 when you look back with Texas. But since going to Tennessee, they've had a lot of good teams, but they haven't been able to get to the Final Four, and you don't know how many more runs you have at this. And the road for Tennessee, I don't think Tennessee, I think what you saw in that SEC championship game is going to be what happens to kind of Tennessee in the NCAA tournament. I think they do have an expiration date. I do think that they have an apex, and I don't believe it's going to win the championship this year. But the SEC, we know, is the best conference this year in college basketball. They put 14 teams in. And you look at that Midwest region, you have Houston, Gonzaga, Georgia, Clemson, McNeese, Purdue, High Point, Illinois, Kentucky. You got Troy, UCLA, Utah State, Tennessee. It is not murderer's row there. Like I said it yesterday, Houston and Duke to me are the 2 schools that I think have the easiest path to get to the Final Four. So even though you lose Dalton Connect, you still got a very good team. You're still number 2 seed. There is pressure on Rick Barnes, in my opinion, entering this NCAA tournament. Now, in at number 4, I put Tommy Lloyd. Tommy Lloyd has won a lot of games at Arizona, but he has not got the most out of his teams in the NCAA tournament. Back in 2021, or which is the 2022 NCAA tournament, they were a 1 seed. They lost in the Sweet 16 to Houston. I know Kelvin Sampson's done a great job, but you're a 1 seed. You're expected to go further than the Sweet 16. Then in 2023, they were a 2 seed. They lost to Princeton and Mitch Henderson. And then last year, they were a 2 seed. They lost in the Sweet 16, where they did fall to Clemson in the Sweet 16. So I look at Tommy Lloyd. There's that narrative being built, right? Phenomenal coach in the regular season, but come postseason time, he doesn't get the job done. So I look at Arizona, not that I think they're this great team this year, but they are a 4 seed. And once again, I said the 2 easiest roads to get to the Final Four are Duke and Houston. They're in Duke's bracket and Duke's region, and they go up against Akron, which is a 13 seed. And if they win that, then they get the winner of Oregon and Liberty. Liberty, 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 Liberty. So I do think there is some pressure on Tommy Lloyd. Then at number 3, I like this guy a lot. He's had a tremendous redemption story. He took Auburn to the Final Four. We have seen Bruce Pearl at Auburn win 2 conference tournament championships, but you're the number 1 overall seed of the tournament. I know that you've lost 3 out of your last 4 games. You got Janai Broom, who I think will be the runner-up for the player of the year. I do think it's going to be Cooper Flagg, but if not him, then it's going to be Janai Broom. And this, to me, if not now, when with Auburn? And Bruce Pearl is, right, energetic. They'll be able to continue to get great players there, as we've seen this be sustained at Auburn. But if not now, when for Bruce Pearl? And it's weird to say that the number 1 overall seed is getting slept on, right? But so many people are doubting Auburn and saying, oh, Auburn's going to lose because of the way that they ended that season. In at number 2, I think there's pressure on Hubert Davis. And people are going to be like, Zach, no one thinks North Carolina belongs in this NCAA tournament besides Bubba Cunningham and Ack, right? Well, we've seen this before where people say a team doesn't belong and then they go on a run. And UNC tonight plays San Diego State, so we'll see what happens. I think that there's pressure on Hubert Davis to at least win this game tonight, where you could shut some people up. Well, then we'll see what happens in your true first-round game. But Hubert Davis in a spot where in year 1, they went to the championship game and they lost. You know, we've seen him miss the NCAA tournament at UNC. Roy Williams came on this show, the great Roy Williams, and I know he basically picked Hubert Davis, right? That was his choice. And he gave him a major vote of confidence. But the UNC fan, I'm not saying it's the majority because I don't know how to definitely break that down, but there is a large contingent of Tar Heel fans that are already tired of Hubert Davis. So I do think there's pressure, even though everyone's sitting here saying, UNC shouldn't be in. Oh, it's a travesty. Oh, it's a crime. Oh, it's the worst thing I've ever seen. Hubert Davis, this is how it goes. He wins tonight. He shuts some people up. Right? I'm not saying that the North Carolina fan in terms of him not being brought back. I think he's going to be brought back regardless. But there's still work to do at UNC. But you shut the national talking heads up. Now, you lose this game tonight, everyone's going to be sitting there, and I know what the take's going to be tomorrow. See? They didn't belong. We were proven to be right, and so on and so on. But in at number 1, I think some people could maybe look at this as maybe a funky answer. But he's in no danger of getting fired. Let me be clear. We define pressure in different ways, and he's done a very good job at Duke. But you're the coach at Duke, right? You're not the coach of South Harmon Institute of Technology. You are expected to get to the Final Four. You are expected to win a national championship. I know this is his 3rd year, first year round to 32. Last year, Elite 8. Last year, I thought was a good year for Duke. But this is a year where Duke, to me, is the best team in the country. And the last month, and really the last week and a half nationally, people have jumped in on Florida. Before that, it was Auburn. So kind of Auburn and Florida swap places. If you would have asked me 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, what's the championship game without knowing the matchups, I would say the 2 best teams that I saw so far in the country were Duke and Auburn. Now I think they're Duke and Florida. But even with the Cooper Flagg injury, and it looks like they've survived that, and he's going to be coming on back. I don't know how much he's going to play in their first-round matchup, if at anything at all. But he's going to make a return to the tournament at some point, and it's not as major of an injury as we thought it was when he got hurt in the ACC tournament. But even without Cooper Flagg, they were able to go on that run and still win the ACC. So I think there's pressure on Jon Scheyer entering this tournament. You got to get to a Final Four. To me, you have the easiest road to get to the Final Four. And you also got to find a way to win the national championship game, or at least be in the national championship game this year, because the standards of the school that you're at are different all around the country. And at Duke, they don't praise you. Oh, you were a number 1 seed. Because of the Krzyzewski standard, you got to go be the last team standing and have one shining moment. And I don't think anyone's going to be calling for Jon Scheyer to get fired if they don't have that happen. But there will be questions until he wins a national championship if he'll be able to do so as a head coach. So those are the 5 coaches to me under the most pressure out in the NCAA tournament. And you could define pressure however you want it. That's why it's always a fun topic of conversation. For me, it's Rick Barnes, Tommy Lloyd, Bruce Pearl, Hubert Davis, and Jon Scheyer. All righty, we'll take a timeout. We'll come on back on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network with a little news brief. Update time first. Here's the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Insurance for motorcycles, boats, and RVs for protection on the road and on the water. See how much you can save at 1-800-PROGRESSIVE and Progressive.com. Brandon Graham announced his retirement, saying he had no regrets, nor should he. Graham won 2 Super Bowls in his 15 seasons in the NFL, all with the Eagles. He's the team's all-time leader in games played with 206, and a second-team All-Pro in 2016 and a Pro Bowler in 2020. He came back early from a torn tricep to play in Super Bowl 59, and that injury reoccurred. The Vikings have come to terms with Jeff Okudah, the 3rd pick of the 2020 draft, has had a tough time battling injuries so far in his career. In Japan today, the Dodgers opened their title defense with a 4-1 win over the Cubs and the Stars. Didn't disappoint. Shohei Ohtani had 2 hits and scored twice. Yoshi Yamamoto got the win, giving up a run on 3 hits over 5 innings, while Shota Imanaga started for the Cubs and went 4 scoreless innings. The first 4 tips off tonight with Alabama State and St. Francis of Pennsylvania, which was 16 and 17. The second part of the doubleheader features the controversial selection, North Carolina taking on San Diego State. I'm Rich Ackerman.
Hey, like us on Facebook. Our handle is INF Sportsnet. That's INF Sportsnet for our Facebook page. This is the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, let's start things off on the news brief. But before we do that, let me first tell you the Defense Play of the Week is sponsored by Navy Federal Credit Union, who proudly serves the armed forces, DoD veterans, and their families. A member of the mission. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. The Defense Play of the Week is Russell Westbrook. After leading the Nuggets on Monday night without Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray to a win over the Red Hot Warriors by getting 3 steals and 2 blocks, along with his 203rd triple-double in his illustrious career. Let's start it off, though, on the gridiron. Here is Cam Ward meeting with the New Orleans Saints.
It was a great meeting, especially, if you get a chance to go play with a Super Bowl coach like Coach Moore. He knows how to dial up the playbook. The Saints, they were one of my favorite teams growing up when I was little. I love watching Drew Brees and Colston out there. So, it'll be a dream of mine to play for them, if I get a chance someday. But that's not really my main focus right now.
At first, I'm like, Super Bowl winning Coach Moore. I'm like, who the heck is he talking about? I'm like, oh, Kellen Moore. Weird to me when we refer to as coordinators as Super Bowl winning coaches when now you're a head coach, but I get the point and what he did on the offensive side of the ball for the Philadelphia Eagles this past year. Here's the problem, Cam Ward. You're going to be a Saints fan growing up. You can love the meeting you have with the Saints. If the Saints ain't moving up to 1, in all likelihood, they're not going to have a chance to go draft you because they have the 9th overall pick, and you will be way gone in the draft before the Saints end up picking at number 9. Here's Hubert Davis and all the criticism that UNC has got in the last 2 days.
I didn't listen to bracketology. I didn't listen after our name was selected on CBS. I didn't listen to the telecast. I haven't listened to anybody's comments in regards to selection, seedings. And so I know that we're really excited to be a part of this.
Yeah, I think you know what was said about you. And I think Bubba Cunningham, Fanta made a great point, since he showed up to the TV interview with the co-chair with him or the assistant chair with him, that was kind of like, we know what's going to get asked. We know that this wasn't right, but we're still going to put somebody else out there because Bubba couldn't really say much, and that's UNCAD. If you're UNC, though, who gives a rat's ass what people are saying? Go shut everybody up and go win tonight, and we'll see if they can do that. Here is Chris Beard, the head coach at Ole Miss. Obviously, a lot of people remember him from Texas, but also when he got to the Final Four, the championship game at Texas Tech, and some pundits calling Ole Miss fraudulent.
Fraud? Yeah. So, I think we got a good team. We just played in what people are calling the best conference in the history of college basketball today as the tournament starts. I think a lot of things could be said about our team, both good and bad. But fraud would not be a word that I would think about when I think about this year's Ole Miss team.
His press conferences the last week have been electric. Some reporter was talking to him. I forget exactly what it was about, but he basically goes, you know my resume? He goes, you know where I've been? You know what I've done? And I found Chris Beard to be very entertaining the last week when talking to the media. Here's Pat Kelsey, the head basketball coach at Louisville. He was on Kentucky Sports Radio. And I noticed this right when the selection committee said right away that Louisville was an 8 seed. You look at Pat Kelsey and he was shocked. So here's Pat Kelsey talking about Louisville only getting an 8 seed.
Man, so I'll be completely honest with you. Like, when we're watching the selection show, it was like you when that popped up, it hurt a little bit. You felt slighted a little bit. In my opinion, we should be playing a 12 or 11 seed. Every metric under the sun that you look at, and all the experts, net 23, which would put us in a possible 5 seed range. Ken Palm 23. I mean, heck, fellas, you're a Kentucky fan. Since that December 14th game, that's 3 months ago.
Yeah.
3 months. We've lost 2 games. We went 18-2 in the ACC. We went to the conference championship game and lost to the number 1 team in the country. So puts a little fire in your belly and gives you just a little added little chip on your shoulder.
I love Pat Kelsey. I do. He is a phenomenal coach. Last year I was saying Dusty May and Pat Kelsey, whoever hires them, going to get a great coach. That Louisville Creighton game, though, is going to be fun. I think that's the 8-9 game. And really the opening round of the tournament, the game that I'm most excited about. But I could just tell his emotions right away when he got the message and he saw what they were playing in the seed they were. He looked absolutely shocked. So I appreciate his honesty there. Let's go to Kendrick Perkins on the ESPN. He said the Suns have quit on Mike Budenholzer.
A disaster. A team that has quit on their coach. And if I'm Mike Budenholzer, to be honest, it's no more rankings in the locker room, meaning it's no more franchise guys. I'm playing the guys that are going to compete for me. And if that means Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, and Bradley Beal not getting the minutes, then damn it, so be it. At this point, he has nothing to lose. Okay, but when I look at the Phoenix Suns, in my 14 years of playing, I have never been part of an organization or a team that has quit on their coach. This is an embarrassment, not only to the Phoenix organization, but to the rest of the NBA, because you have so many guys that are going to be Hall of Famers on that team.
Remember last week? I think it was last week when KD had a little kerfuffle with Mike Budenholzer on the sideline, and they ended up winning the game, and KD tried to chastise us all and talk down to us all about their relationship. Oh, you don't really know what it's like. It's a good one, and you only just see one thing on the sideline. And I kind of even liked his answer, but you got to take everything Kevin Durant says with a grain of salt. Well, you said Big Perk say what he said, and then Sam Amico, who's a longtime NBA reporter for Wire Hoops, he had the other day that the Phoenix Suns could fire Mike Budenholzer in the offseason to appease Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. And I think that would be a mistake by Phoenix. Now, you're trying to keep those players, but it seems like Kevin Durant already wants out. And I don't think there's anything you're going to be able to do to keep Kevin Durant in Phoenix at this rate. Here is Keon Coleman on Complex Sports. He details his first dinner with Josh Allen.
So the first time he invited me to dinner at this place, I don't even know what this was, the woman cooked. It looked like we was eating onions, fish, and bread. I was like, this is like the stuff Jesus fed the people in the little children book. You know, like the little children books they give you? Like, that's what that looked like. I said, man, what is this, bro?
I could listen to Keon Coleman talk all day. And also, Josh Allen, with the salary you got, it seems like you got to up the food game. Maybe your private chef got to do a little bit of a better job. I got a chance to interview one of the most famous actors on the planet over the weekend, David Harbour, who you know him from Stranger Things. He has a new film coming on out called The Working Man, which comes out on March 28th, so 10 days from now. And it's funny because David Harbour, he's really blown up the last year because of the last 10 years, because of Stranger Things. So in his last decade, like the 40s of his life, that's where he's really blown up as an actor. Well, when talking to him, we discussed how he didn't like the name of the show, Stranger Things, at first. This is David Harbour. It's funny to me, everyone knows you for Stranger Things, and you didn't like the title of it. Why was that?
I hated it. It was called Montauk originally. It was supposed to be like set in Montauk, and I love that title. I just think that title's so strong when you turn on the TV. It's like Montauk comes at you. And then it was like Stranger Things. There was something about it that felt like, stranger things have happened. I don't know, it just felt like, felt cheesy or something. It felt like silly. And then, of course, it became like, when I'm associated, people run down the street yelling Stranger Things at me. So.
It just shows you sometimes in life, you just can't predict things. Stranger Things, that's never going to work. And that's what made your career. And it's one of the biggest shows on the planet. It made him one of the biggest actors on the planet. Once again, you can check out A Working Man on March 28th. And that will do it for a news brief on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We will take a time out. When we come on back, we got to get to hour number 2 of our radio program. We will kick things off in about 5 minutes from now with the former Georgia quarterback. That does a great job on the ESPN as a college football analyst, and that is Aaron Murray. We'll continue to push through our prospect profiles, and today we will look at all the Georgia players that are expected to hear their names called in the first round of the NFL draft. So we'll talk some Georgia football. We will talk some NFL prospects when we come on back in 5 minutes right here on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network with Aaron Murray. Also still to come in hour number 2 of our radio program, I will come up with my latest percentages for Aaron Rodgers and his next destination. We'll do a little Aaron Rodgers pie chart. And then in about 40 to 50 minutes from now, we'll get into this Michigan baseball celebration and also the disaster that now is the NIT. Take a break. Come on back. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
All righty, away we go. Hour number 2 of our radio program. That's right, it is the Zach Gelb Show, coast to coast on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll put the college basketball talk on the back burner for a bit, as we're right in the thick of March Madness with the brackets being released on Sunday, and we do have the NCAA tournament starting tonight in Dayton. But we got to continue our prospect profile series, and usually we do have to take a stop in Georgia because they always have a bunch of prospects, especially under Kirby Smart, for the NFL draft. So let's get to that right now.
The Combine is over, and the 2025 NFL Draft is almost upon us.
With the first pick in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Chicago Bears select Caleb Williams. The Carolina Panthers select Bryce Young. The Jacksonville Jaguars select Trevor Lawrence. The Cincinnati Bengals select Joe Burrow.
Let's find out whose stock is falling and whose stock is rising.
Jackpot, baby!
And now it's time for the Zach Gelb Show to give you an inside look at some of the biggest draft prospects in this edition of Prospect Profile.
3 players from Georgia expected to go in the first round, all from the defensive side of the ball. Jalen Walker, Michael Williams, and also Malachi Starks. So let's welcome in a former Georgia quarterback, now does a great job as an ESPN college football analyst, and that's our pal, Aaron Murray. Aaron, appreciate the time as always. How you been?
Man, doing good. Just excited. My Georgia Bulldogs obviously making noise on the football field, but finally we got something to cheer for on the hardwood, and the baseball's doing well. We're sort of becoming an everything school, so a lot to be excited about for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, and we had John Fanta on the other day to talk a little college basketball, and he's like, oh, everyone's saying Gonzaga is definitely going to win. He actually liked Georgia to pull off that victory in the first round, so we'll have to wait and see. Let me get to the NFL draft stuff, though. Jalen Walker, I think he's going to be the first player from Georgia selected. I saw Daniel Jeremiah in his latest mock draft actually had him going 5th overall to the Jacksonville Jaguars. What do you think his ceiling could be in the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a guy, I've got to know him over the past couple of years, just incredible human being, hard worker. And you say that about most of these guys. I mean, kind of when you're under the Kirby Smart thumbprint, you learn to work like a pro day in and day out, the scheme, the way the practices are formatted. But, I would say good size, not maybe elite size, but just that tenacity to be able to get after the quarterback, that tenacity to get out the line of scrimmage, that first burst, which is so critical for a defensive end outside linebacker, being able to get off the ball, be disruptive. I mean, that's what the college games turn into. That's what the NFL games turn into. Who can get that first initial burst when the ball is snapped to be able to either protect the quarterback, obviously in a pass-happy league, or be able to get after the quarterback. I think Jalen's obviously athletic enough to do that. Extremely athletic to get out there and cover in space as well. Maybe not necessarily Michael Williams' strength, more of that big physical rush end, can still drop a little bit at times, but Jalen's someone that you could do both with and feel really comfortable with him playing in space as well. So not surprised at all that a lot of people have him in their top 5, top 10 heading into the NFL draft.
Do you think Michael Williams is a better player than Jalen Walker? Just wondering.
They're very different. I mean, you can just look at just the pure size and strength. I mean, Michael's 6'5", 240, 250. Jalen more that 6'1", 235, 240. Like I said, more that guy that can rush and drop, do a little bit more, maybe put him in the middle linebacker spot in some situations as well, and have him rush from that spot. Where Michael is still that big physical, set the edge, be a little bit more aggressive against the run, can still obviously get after the quarterback and use his strength and speed that way. But it depends on the scheme. I know that's somewhat of a cop-out answer, but, they're very different in what they do and how they do it, even though they play, quote-unquote, similar positions and can do a lot of the same things. So it depends on where they end up. But, with the way defenses are nowadays to combat the offenses you see with a lot of these still in the NFL, the quick bubbles, they get the ball to talent, speed guys in space. It's nice to have a guy like Jalen that you feel comfortable with, that has the speed that could drop out and do so much for you defensively.
Yeah, I'm fascinated by where Michael Williams is going to go, because it felt like a month ago, and I follow a lot of these mock drafts, that Jalen and Michael, they were both pretty close, not that far, a lot of separation in a lot of these mock drafts. They're both going in the top 10, both going in the top 15. I know it's only one mock draft. I told you where Jalen's going 5 to the Jaguars. Daniel Jeremiah has Michael Williams falling all the way to 28th to the Lions. So is the stock kind of falling on him from things that you're hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I think the film was not as sexy as Jalen. I think Jalen really had an incredible season. I thought he was a really good leader on that side of the football. I thought he made big-time plays in big-time games. I mean, as you talk to Georgia fans in the state, they feel like every single game, whether it was against Texas or against Bama or, whoever along the way, when a play needed to be made, everyone was looking to Jalen Walker to be that guy. And I think that's where he kind of separated himself from a playmaking standpoint of being able to go out there and kind of put the defense on his back a little bit at times, where Michael, a little bit quiet, but that's Kirby's defense at times too. And I think that's where we get lulled to sleep so much when we look at stats. We're so worried about, how many sacks did someone get? How many tackles for loss? How disruptive were they when really Michael plays such a different at times position once again than Jalen, where he's asked to take on double teams. He's asked to set the edge. He's not always asked just to, hey, put your head down and see red, go get red, go attack the quarterback. So I think Jalen was asked to do more, that was able to make more splash plays. So if you are an evaluator at times and you're watching tape on Georgia, Jalen jumps out more. But for a defense that's looking for a 5 technique to be able to set the edge, that's a guy that Michael, or a team that Michael is going to kind of gravitate towards. And, if they're in the top 15 or top 20, they may take an opportunity on him.
I think that's the toughest part. You have so many great players in college on Georgia, especially the defensive side of the ball. Look at the Eagles with Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis. All those guys ended up going in the first round, and all 3 of those guys probably should have gone higher in the draft. Obviously Trayvon Walker, based off the potential, ended up going number 1 overall a few years ago, even though I thought it should be Aiden Hutchinson. Since you have so many good players, I think it's so tough to evaluate a Georgia defensive player because you all know they're good, but with how many mouths there are to feed in that defense, it's kind of like, how could you tell who's going to end up being great? And sometimes it makes those players fall back a little bit in the draft just because of how many people eat on that defense.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I do think that there's one guy to me that I've just been so impressed with throughout his tenure at the University of Georgia. That's Malachi Starks. I mean, from day one, the interception versus Oregon in his first game to what he did last year. And we talk about the versatility of Jalen Walker. You know, when I watch Malachi Starks throughout the season, it's absolutely incredible what Kirby and that Stephen Schumann asked him to do, from playing obviously the safety position where he's most comfortable, free safety, strong safety, blitzing, coming down and some sort of, they bring like a cross dog blitz with the linebackers, playing low middle of the field, to even at times last year being essentially a nickel, a cornerback, the third cornerback. They'd bring an extra safety. They'd move Malachi to the slot. And going back to, once again, what offenses look like nowadays in college football in the NFL, a lot of times you're going against the best receiver. A decade ago when I played, your best receiver was the Z. So he's to the field in 2x2. And then if you went 3x1, we'd put like AJ Green backside as the X. Now all of a sudden you're putting a lot of your best players, your best receiver as that number 2 in the slot, trying to create matchups against safeties, trying to create matchups against linebackers. And they were comfortable enough to put Malachi in the slot as nickel, playing zone, blitzing, and then also playing a lot of man-to-man coverage. So, his versatility, I know the 40 wasn't maybe as great as a lot of people or he was hoping it would be, but his ball skills, his physicality, his football savvy and smarts, and then once again, like that, the ability to play safety, and nickel. I just think he is so valuable. He's been unbelievable during his 3 years at Georgia, and I think he's going to be a great addition to whoever does select him in the first round.
So between Jalen, Malachi, and Michael, do you think Malachi actually has the highest ceiling?
I do. I think he does, because I think there's less questions. I think Jalen, I still worry a little bit about the size. I think Michael physically is as gifted as anyone that you're going to be able to get. Once again, I just don't know if he's going to be just like Georgia, put in a position to make splash play after splash play. But when I do look like a guy like Malachi, I think defenses and defensive coordinators, with everything they try to do to slow down these offenses nowadays, look at him and say, man, we can do so much with that guy tomorrow. And he's so football smart. So, I love all three. I think we both agree that all three will be hearing their names called at some point during the first round. But I do think Malachi and his football savvy and his versatility is going to make a huge impact.
And in his latest mock draft, Daniel Jeremiah has Malachi Starks actually going in the top 15, 13th overall to the Miami Dolphins. Aaron Murray here with us. All right, while I have you here, since we just talked about a bunch of the Georgia players that are expected to go in the first round, quarterback-wise, at the end of the season, I thought it was a very 50-50 conversation on Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. Now, as we inch closer and closer to the draft, a little over a month away, it seems like a slam dunk that Cam Ward's going to go in front of Shedeur Sanders. How do you evaluate those two quarterbacks?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I hate this draft class, to be honest. I don't want to be picking any of these guys really in the top 15 picks. For me personally, if I'm looking for someone in the first round, especially someone that top 5, top 10, top 15, they better have something that's elite, and not just the off the field stuff, but like on the field, arm strength, size, toughness, versatility, escapability, the ability to run like Lamar. Like, give me something that is on the elite side. And I do think Cam Ward has top tier arm talent. I think there's some things when it comes to pocket awareness, when it comes to, reeling in some of that playmaking. I mean, I remember kind of diagramming 2 or 3 times last year. He's rolling all the way to the right, gets to the sideline, throws the ball across the field to the opposite hash, both times resulting in interceptions. I'm like, you can't do that. We all know you can't throw across your body. Hell, you can't throw the ball 30 yards across the field across your body for sure. So there are some things that need to get cleaned up. But when it comes to at least having something that I feel like is top 10 in the NFL, at least he has that arm strength. Where I look at Shedeur, and I like his game. I think it's very consistent. Nothing to me screams he's going to be a top 10 in this. He's not going to be top 10, top 15 arm strength, athletic ability, accuracy. I think he's a good overall quarterback. But is he someone that is like I said, has that elite characteristic? I don't think so. So I'm with you. I think Cam goes 1. I think Shedeur goes 2. After that, it's just a bunch of, what I consider, in a normal draft, third round quarterbacks that are going to get the ability because of this year's draft to maybe end up at the end of the first round, second round, or early third round, based on just the weakness of the class.
Yeah, I think the third quarterback in this draft, from what people are saying, is Jackson Dart. If you would have told me at the end of the season that Jackson Dart would have been a first-round pick, I wouldn't believe it. And I talked about this to open up the show. Like, I went through the entire first round. I'm like, okay, where could Jackson Dart go where I wouldn't be irate? And I said 21 to Pittsburgh. But still, I would not feel good about using a first-round pick on Jackson Dart.
No, and I think I'm hoping teams will be smart enough. But, I mean, listen, the NFL this year has been pretty bad, or this past season, when it came to quarterback play. I mean, these teams are desperate to try and make something work with quarterbacks. But still, like, it's to waste a pick on a first-round quarterback. I mean, listen, I covered college football year long. It was not a good quarterback year when it came to college sports. It was just a bunch of average guys that played in really good offenses. And I covered Jackson Dart as an analyst for ESPN. I want to say 3 or 4 times over the past 2 seasons. Been to Ole Miss. I've sat down with Lane, have watched him in person, watched him warm up, watched him play the game, covered him. Studied a lot of tape. I think he's a good quarterback. He's a great competitor. He's a tremendous leader. But once again, when it comes to like those elite traits, that what it takes to be a guy that you feel like you can win a Super Bowl, and that's what you're drafting. If you're drafting someone in the first round, a guy that you could believe could maybe get you deep in the playoffs or possibly a Super Bowl berth, he doesn't have those.
Yeah.
So I don't want to waste a draft pick on him. There's one guy that I do like. I say I like him, that has a Superman characteristic, and that's Jalen Milroe. I thought he would have developed more as a passer last year with the new offense and the new coach and kind of what was done at Washington. Very disappointing that he did not develop, but he's a guy that does have really good arm strength.
You know who Milroe reminds me of? He reminds me of the same way we talked about Anthony Richardson, where it's like you see some moments, and he had better moments in college than Anthony Richardson, to be fair, where you're like, oh, this guy's going to be a star. And then there's like 3 or 4 weeks where the floor is just absolutely atrocious. There's no middle ground. There's no just like, hey, even when you're not playing well, you can still keep your team in the game. It's either all or nothing with Jalen Milroe, and that's what concerns me.
But that's what NFL coaches want, though. They want to – right now, if you're drafting a quarterback in the first round, any of these guys, you are hoping you hit a grand slam. What is a guy that potentially could give you a grand slam? Who's that guy that if you can develop for a year or 2 has the characteristics to give you that? And to me, Jalen is the only one that has that of the guys remaining. Like I said, does have elite arm strength, probably the strongest arm of those guys. I like Tyler Shuck there at Louisville as well, but has a strong arm and is by far the most athletic quarterback, one of the most athletic guys in the draft. His issues come down to the fundamentals. It's all on his feet. His feet were so bad last year. He's throwing out routes to the left. His feet are facing down the field. These are somewhat easy fixes. It's going to take some time to do. But if I'm swinging for the fences, give me the guy that can at least make those home run plays. And right now, Jalen's the only one left after those top 2 guys that could do it. So if I'm taking a chance, I'd rather take a chance on a guy like that.
And also, just going back to Jackson Dart, wrapping up with Aaron Murray, it's like you look at the Kentucky and the Florida games. Those are obviously things that are going to be held against him. And I know he could put up a ton of good numbers when Lane Kiffin's your coach. And so I'm not saying like he's a horrible quarterback, but when we're talking a first-round quarterback, that game up against Georgia, they didn't win that game because of their offense. They won that game because of their defense that game. Jackson Dart wasn't impressive to me in that one, too.
Well, we go back to the game we just talked about, Georgia defenders, defensive players to start this conversation. Go back and watch that Alabama-Georgia game. Jalen made Malachi look so slow. I was shocked. I mean, I'm watching the tape. I'm like,
that first half,
he made Malachi look like his feet were stuck in sand. I mean, that's the type of athleticism that quarterback has. And he made Georgia's defense, 3 guys going to be drafted in the first round, look slow. And you can't tell me that you cannot figure out. I mean, hell, Jalen Hurts coming out, I thought still had some question marks as a thrower. Hardworking kid, good kid, a lot of the same characteristics as Jalen. Great leader, needed to develop as a passer. He has done that now on top of the athleticism, and look what he's done. I'm not saying that we have the next coming of Jalen Hurts or anything like that. I'm just saying he has it factors that excite me, that if you can figure out a way to kind of bottle some stuff up, you could be talking about a pretty special player eventually.
So you would say your three quarterbacks in this draft are Cam Ward 1, Shedeur Sanders 2, and then Jalen Milroe 3 if you were a GM?
Yeah, those are my three if I'm a GM. I'm going with those. I like Will Howard. I think Tyler Shuck is pretty good there at the Louisville. I'm not down on Jackson Dart at all. There's just nothing elite to me, size or arm. I think athleticism is good. But after that, it's just kind of.
What about Kyle McCord? Do you like him?
Yeah, third, fourth round. I think I thought last year really impressed there at Syracuse. I thought he had some really good moments at Ohio State too, and only his first year. So, I think he's same thing. Third, fourth round talent. I like his arm. Thought the accuracy improved last year. I thought the turnovers, besides the one game versus Louisville, I thought he controlled that decently. So, a lot of good stuff from him. I kind of see like Tyler Shuck, Will Howard, and him, and maybe even Quinn, kind of in that grouping somewhere in the third or fourth round.
He is Aaron Murray. Aaron, hey, before we let you run and we talk about this quarterback year not being a glamour year for quarterbacks, this time last year, if I probably said who would have been the number 1 overall pick, the first quarterback taken, I would have said Carson Beck. Obviously, Carson Beck is now at Miami. Are you still optimistic that he could turn around, or is what we kind of saw last year the true Carson Beck, where he's not as great as what people thought?
No, listen, I think if he didn't have the UCL injury, I think we'd be talking about Carson Beck probably as that number 3 quarterback in this NFL draft. So, that's back-to-back seasons, going back to a year ago, that he probably would have been the 5th quarterback taken, which was top 12 quarterback. Might have had an opportunity to go to Minnesota instead of J.J. McCarthy. So he missed opportunity last year. Obviously, the UCL, I thought it was a good decision to come back for another season. But, he's going to Miami, and Miami just lost all their playmakers. Who's he going to throw to next year? I think that's the big question. Miami had 3 really talented receivers. All those guys going to the NFL, they still got talent, and Mario's done a good job recruiting, but he's going to have to figure out some new targets and a new offense, in which right now he's not practicing because he can't throw the football. So I still think overall, great size, good athleticism. I don't think the UCL injury is going to impact arm strength. I think he's extremely accurate. I thought last year that as an offense as a whole, Georgia was just not good around him. So I'm still high on him. I still think he has an opportunity to be a first-round quarterback come 2026.
Former Georgia quarterback Aaron Murray now does a great job on ESPN as a college football analyst. Aaron, appreciate you jumping on board with us.
Appreciate you, and go Dogs in the tournament.
There you go. Aaron Murray joining us on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We come out with our latest Aaron Rodgers pie chart on his next destination when we return in 5 minutes.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
You're listening to the Zach Gelb Show.
Welcome back in. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I'm laughing because I was looking down, reading a few notes, and then I hear Hickey's voice in my ear. Do you hit a liner here? And I'm like, how the heck did Hickey get there? And now I see Azarim back. Why are you in the bathroom, Azarim? What was going on? You could speak on the air.
I was talking to our boss.
Who? Mayernick?
Yeah.
Oh, well, now I got to go yell at our boss during the break.
No, it was on me.
Oh, no. I got to yell at Mayernick now. We're trying to do a radio show here, and I got the boss and David Mayernick talking to our guy, Alex Azarim.
No, I went to him first. So.
Oh, did you? Were you complaining about me already?
No.
I'm kidding with you. I'm just teasing with you. I thought you had like a Tracy Morgan incident or something like that, where I looked up and maybe you were like projectile vomiting. Did you see that last night, by the way?
I did.
How could you miss it? I felt so bad for Tracy Morgan. Samton, did you see that too last night? That was absolutely crazy. I've never when you sit close at an NBA game, there's nothing like it. And the access at NBA games are just ridiculous if you have those seats. And we've seen things spill, right? A ball goes into the stand and there's like a Diet Coke or beers that get spilled. Someone's drunk and they spill a beer. I've never seen someone sitting courtside projectile vomit, Samter. That was just wild.
Yeah, and the first initial reports were not only did he vomit, but he was bleeding out of his nose. But then
I thought that something unfortunately tragic was about to happen.
Seriously, and they had to wheelchair him out, and people said he was trying to stand up out of the wheelchair afterwards, and he couldn't get up. Turns out he just had food poisoning. He sent some pictures from the hospital with all these nodes all over him and in the hospital bed. But It was a scary scene, man.
It was.
Because Tracy Morgan has a crazy past, so like I wouldn't put anything past him.
And I know that we get so lame on the internet, right? And everyone's got to get clicks and stuff like that. All these aggregators and all these accounts that are posting the video last night, maybe this is me actually having a heart here. The guy just projectile vomited. If you wanted to see it, you were going to be able to see it. Do I need every aggregator and every account posting about it? I thought it was a little insensitive last night to keep on just sharing video after video of Tracy Morgan. If he was just drunk as a skunk at the game, all right, shame on him, you clown him. But you knew something serious was going on, and how everyone just kept on sharing and making their comments about it last night, that was a little bit too much for me. And I'm not usually like that. Like, I'm going to defend someone coming up in a bit where I think he's getting criticized, and it's absolutely ridiculous. But the oversharing of that video was a little bit too much for me last night. So is this guy Josh Brownie the one that recorded this? So this is courtesy of his Twitter. He was talking about the Tracy Morgan incident last night at Madison Square Garden.
I saw commotion on the court. I did not see Tracy Morgan throw up. I saw that on Twitter after the fact. So I just saw people rushing to him, and I saw him taking the towel, go to his nose multiple times, his face, and then I saw red spots in the towel. I don't know if it's part of the towel. It was an NBA towel from what I could see, but it looked like he was bleeding from his nose. That's why I said what I said. And after that, he tried to stand up and just struggled to stand up. And then they wheeled him out. Dude's been through a lot, and wish him the best right now. Hope he's okay tonight.
When was the last time you had food poisoning, Santer? Can you remember?
Yeah, it was like 3 weeks ago or so. Actually, no, that wasn't food poisoning. That was actually something else. I felt like I had food poisoning because I was, hugging the porcelain, praying to the porcelain gods for like 8 hours straight. That was about a month ago. The last time I had real food poisoning was probably 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know what it is. Something about oysters just gets me.
Oh, really?
So I had some oysters.
Do you know that going in?
So I've had oysters probably 15 times in my life. And 2 or 3 of the 15 times I've gotten sick.
Yeah.
The first time I thought it was bad oysters. The second time I thought maybe I was allergic. The third time
maybe
was
they weren't dead. Maybe they're just swimming around. You didn't realize it. Swimming around that Samter stomach of yours.
Something swimming around
I
back
haven't, knock on wood, because whenever I do this, it ends up happening.
Yeah, you're calling out tomorrow because you're going to be sick.
So I've had like a stomach bug before, but I haven't had food poisoning, I think, going back to college. There was this really good truck in college. Really good food truck. And they made this salad that, like, it sounds so lame, but it was such a good salad. And I
don't think
it.
I've ever heard that before. A good salad. It sounds just salad.
Well, there's very good salads. It was like there was a bunch of like I don't even know how to describe it. It was this Italian food truck, and they just made this. It was unhealthy. Let's be real.
Okay, that
but
makes
they
sense.
made like a killer salad, and I had it, and there was an egg in it, and there was some other stuff I forget, and clearly everything wasn't cooked because I got back to the apartment that night. And, I was in the bathroom for 4 hours. So that was the last time I remember getting food poisoning. Anyway, let's get to the latest Aaron Rodgers pie chart rankings. And no, hopefully we don't get food poisoning off this if this pie is not cooked enough. Here is Cam Hayward on the Not Just Football podcast. Will he do a darkness retreat to recruit Aaron Rodgers? Let's get to this.
I ain't doing that or darkness retreat. I don't need any of that crap. Like, either you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. That's simple. That's the pitch. Like, if you want me to recruit, that's the recruiting pitch. Pittsburgh Steelers. If you want to be part of it, so be it. If you don't, no skin on my back.
Yeah, I think that's where everyone's at right now. Aaron, just make a decision. I understand the drama that comes with Aaron Rodgers. No one should be surprised that we're waiting on Aaron Rodgers because he's a drama whore. And he likes drama. So he has the NFL world right now by the you-know-what, and he's going to wait and delay and delay and delay and delay. I've seen people come out today and be like, oh, it's a tough decision. Well, what's so tough about this decision? There's 4 options. Minnesota is your preferred destination. I don't think they're that interested in him. So if Minnesota's off the board, or if you're waiting for Minnesota to officially say no, then your other destinations are retirement, the Steelers, or the Giants. And I would have to imagine that in his rankings, it's the Vikings 1, it's the Steelers 2, then the Giants 3, and retirement 4th. But I don't think the Vikings are all that realistic for him, because I do believe they're going to rock and roll with J.J. McCarthy. Now, this is from Adam Schefter. So we have 2 cuts here from Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter actually has floated out Kirk Cousins potentially going back to the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins right now is the backup quarterback with the Atlanta Falcons, but he's highly compensated because he's supposed to be their starter. And then they drafted Michael Penix Jr. Here is Aaron Rodgers, Adam Schefter, just floating out the possibility of Kirk Cousins going back to Minnesota.
What if Minnesota just waits around till after the draft and then somehow figures out a way for Kirk Cousins to get to Minnesota as the backup to J.J. McCarthy? Wouldn't that make some sense, right? And maybe the Vikings can wait it out. The Falcons have been determined not to release him. I think the Falcons want to be able to say, we got something back for this guy that we paid so much to get. So maybe Minnesota says, you know what, it's worth it for us. We'll give you a 6th-round draft pick. They haven't solved the number 2. JJ's coming off the injury. You still don't know what you're going to have. Let's solidify the position with Kirk Cousins. Doesn't that make sense?
Here's my question. Why would Kirk Cousins be interested in that? Wouldn't you just rather just stay in Atlanta? The only reason you're going to leave Atlanta is if you go be a starter somewhere. So why would you go to Minnesota? Maybe you could argue Minnesota has better weapons with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Hawkinson. He was just there, though, and, he left. So I'm not saying that you can't go home and maybe, hey, Kirk Cousins could view this as J.J. McCarthy's just not that dude. We'll let J.J. McCarthy struggle. Then they'll be clamoring for a spot where I don't say he was loved there, but he was well-liked. We're in Atlanta where I could argue that Michael Penix Jr., and I hate to argue injury, but he's had a good bill of health the last 2-3 years. Before that, though, he was a walking injury. So I don't see why Kirk would really have the appetite to go from Atlanta to Minnesota, Samter. Do you see something there that I don't?
The only thing I could say, I would think, would be one of 2 things. One, he just feels so slighted by the Falcons. Like, hey, come here, we'll sign this big contract. 2 months later, we're going to draft your replacement and then replace you midway through the season. Mm-hmm. He might just be like, I want to get the hell out of here. I don't care where I go. He obviously has roots in Minnesota. He was there for a while, so he probably would rather be there than in Atlanta anyway.
Isn't it a little embarrassing going back to Minnesota at this rate?
Yes, but
you're kind of like crawling back to Minnesota there.
The other part of it, yes, maybe Michael Penix is more injury prone, but we also don't know the injury timeline for McCarthy, like when he's going to be fully healthy, ready to go, and ready to get back on the field. Maybe Cousins is going to start for part of the season.
So I'm not yelling at you here, to be clear. But this idea that McCarthy is not going to be ready by week 1, there's some conflicting reports if he's going to be ready by training camp. But they kind of gave a positive remark on that, right, with the guy that we had on last week, the Minnesota reporter. They kind of gave a positive remark at the combine on him. Nothing set in stone. And I know that he had another surgery, but like, geez Louise, this is the longest recovery from a meniscus ever. So it would be very hard pressed for me to think that J.J. McCarthy is not going to be ready by the start of the season.
And it's not necessarily whether or not it was Matthew Collar who we had. He was great. He was fantastic.
Yeah, he was.
It's not necessarily whether or not he's ready, but there's one thing about being cleared and ready to play, and another thing about getting that mental block of having your knee back to normal. And he's a running quarterback. He's a guy who needs to be mobile. So maybe he's just not, he might be cleared, healthy enough, but maybe he's just not quite there yet. He needs to get back into the playbook, needs to get back into the rhythm, the timing, and who knows how long that's going to take him. He's probably fine, but if I'm Kirk Cousins, I probably have a better chance of starting for the Vikings than I do for the Falcons.
To start the season, I guess, because there is, a very small chance on the McCarthy health that he has another setback. But I think at this rate, you're just going from backup to backup. I really do. And I don't think Kirk Cousins, if he goes from Atlanta to Minnesota, the juice is worth the squeeze, if I'm him. Now, let's get one more from Adam Schefter. This is on the Pat McAfee Show and Aaron Rodgers' future.
If Aaron Rodgers had his way, I believe that he would like to sign with the Minnesota Vikings. Do I think that that's happening? Not today, not next week. Do I think it's out of the question? Not entirely. Do I think it's likely? No. But again, it's just lingering out there. I think he knows that Minnesota would be an ideal situation. He could go try to beat the Green Bay Packers, which I'm sure he'd like to do. He could go try to continue to own the Chicago Bears. But I just don't know that it's practical for the Vikings. The team is behind J.J. McCarthy. It believes in J.J. McCarthy. If they bring in Aaron Rodgers, who knows what type of impact and influence that will have on the quarterback who is their future.
The only retort I would have to that is that they believe in McCarthy so much, and I think J.J. McCarthy is going to be the week one starter. I don't think they're signing Aaron Rodgers. Why hasn't Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah or Kevin O'Connell come out yet and just say, hey, we're not doing the Aaron Rodgers stuff. JJ's our guy. That's the only retort. Not that you respond to everything, but there's obviously enough legs here where this has been enough in the conversation. So here's where I'm at right now. I think 65% Aaron Rodgers to the Pittsburgh Steelers. 23% Aaron Rodgers to the New York Football Giants. 10% to the Minnesota Vikings. And then a 2% chance that he retires. I would still be very surprised if he's not starting for the Pittsburgh Steelers. What is interesting to me is if, let's say, Minnesota goes, Aaron, we're not interested. And the Steelers go, you know what, we're going to listen to Cam Hayward. We shouldn't have to be begging for you. We're just going to bring back Russell Wilson. Then, would he go to the Giants or would he retire? That's, to me, the interesting question. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers, he wouldn't be happy, I think, going to the Giants, but I think he would go play another season because I don't think he's ready to retire. I'd be very surprised if he ends up retiring. All righty, we'll take a timeout. We'll get into this Michigan baseball player next and also the disaster in the NIT. JV move by the NIT. We'll get to that on the other side. Update time first, though. Here's the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, Brandon Graham came back from a torn tricep to play in the Super Bowl and now goes out on a high note as the 36-year-old announces retirement after 15 years in the NFL, all with Philadelphia, and is the Eagles' all-time leaders in games played after re-injuring that tricep in the Super Bowl. The Vikings agreed to a deal with corner Jeff Okudah, the third pick overall in 2020, while Garrett Bradbury signs with the Patriots for 2 years after being released by the Vikings yesterday. The NCAA tournament begins tonight with the first four. First up will be St. Francis and Alabama State, playing for the right to face Auburn. The second part of the doubleheader features San Diego State and North Carolina. The Tar Heels, a controversial choice in part because of their poor record against good teams. Head coach Hubert Davis is aware of the complaints, but doesn't pay any attention to them.
I didn't listen to bracketology. I didn't listen after our name was selected on CBS. I didn't listen to the telecast. I haven't listened to anybody's comments in regards to selection, seedings, and so I know that we're really excited to be a part of this.
In Japan today, the Dodgers beat the Cubs 4-1 as Yoshi Yamamoto got the better of countryman Shota Imanaga, while Shohei Ohtani had 2 hits and 2 runs scored in the win. I'm Rich Ackerman.
You're in the right place. The Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Zach Gelb Show.
All right, it is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. So let's get to two stories, one on the NIT and one in college baseball. I didn't think those two sports or those two backgrounds are going to be talked about in this talk show today, the NIT and college baseball. I wasn't expecting that. So South Alabama, they were invited to the NIT, right? Think about that. All right. You get invited to the NIT. There's two other tournaments, not the NCAA tournament. I know we don't really pay much attention to them, but you could go or you don't go, but it's a nice way to continue your season if you don't make the big dance, right? Now in the NIL era, if you're a bigger school, a lot of those teams, they reject going to those tournaments and they go, okay, we just got to start, focusing on recruiting. So every school has a different thought process on that. I remember one year Temple got screwed out of the NCAA tournament. They kind of went on a run. They made it to the Final Four of the NIT when I was calling their games. They played at Madison Square Garden. It was fun in the moment. Outside, if you're not associated with that school, do I think anyone really gives a rat's ass about the NIT right now? No, I do not. But South Alabama, it's a principle here. They get invited to the NIT, and it shows you how much of a joke the NIT is. So their coach, Richie Riley, was then, after he already told his team that they're in the NIT and he got informed that they were in the NIT, the offer got rescinded because UC Riverside, who there was either a miscommunication or they were never contacted or it never got to them, they were going to go to the other tournament. And then they hear they got an invite to the NIT. They're like, oh, no, we're actually going to go to the NIT. So think about that. You are Richie Riley, who's at South Alabama. You tell your kids, hey, we're going to continue our season. We're going to play in the NIT. And then you go back and you go, there's no postseason play for us. So Riley told AL.com he was informed late Sunday evening that his team has been invited to the NIT because UC Riverside declined its invitation due to a previous commitment to play in the College Basketball Invitational, a tournament with no NCAA affiliation. However, shortly after, according to ESPN, Riley informed his team that it would play in the NIT. UC Riverside got out of its commitment to the CBI and accepted the NIT bid. I tell Sun Belt Conference Commissioner Keith Gill and NCAA Senior Vice President of Basketball Dan Gavitt, I'm going to tell my guys. They're like, go ahead. So I tell the team, Riley told AL.com, Gill and Gavitt then call him back whatever time it was, 10:45, 11 o'clock, and go, Dan, UC Riverside is back in. Dan calls, the coach. He goes, UC Riverside is back in. I hate that we had to do this. That's ridiculous. The NIT is a joke, but that's really a joke. How dysfunctional can they be in the NCAA? And I know the NCAA is rotten. I know it's disgusting, and a lot of slimy things go on, even though we highlight most of the good. But you tell a school, hey, we have an invite for you for the NIT. Can I tell my kids, the coach even paranoid, can I tell my kids, yes, you can tell your kids UC Riverside's not going to go to the NIT. They're in the other tournament. Great. You tell your kids, we're going to the NIT. 15 minutes later, did you tell your kids yet? Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no, 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 no. You're actually not in the NIT. We don't have a space for you. That's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. And shame on all that were involved in the incompetent, and that's what I mean, incompetent decision-making process here. How you mess that up is ridiculous. It'd be like if I tell Samter, hey, Mike, we're giving you a raise. Tell your family. Go tell that we're giving you a big raise here. And then 15 minutes later, oh, you already posted about it? You told everybody? Oh, somebody else said that they were back in, so the money has to go to them, and you don't get it. That's just a really crappy thing to do. A crappy thing to do. And these kids at South Alabama, they got screwed over here. And there's no other way to address this. Now, let's get to this college baseball story. I think you guys will be impressed here.
This one's more fun.
Mitchell Voigt. Do you know he's not the first person to do a celebration like this? Soccer guys? You too? Any of you guys know the answer here? You know what I'm talking about?
I don't remember who it was, but I do remember seeing it and reading about it.
So Kevin Clancy, our guy, KFC Barstool from Barstool Sports. I don't know the name of the soccer player. He could be a very famous soccer player or not. I'm not a soccer guy. He posted the video of the soccer player that did this all these years ago.
And the Robbie Fowler one?
If you're asking me to, asking me to name a soccer player, Freddie Adu, Messi, Pele, that's about all I got.
He used to play for Liverpool.
Oh, and Rob Green, he was the goalie for England where the ball went through his legs.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's like about it with my soccer knowledge. But his celebration was obnoxious. It was funny. But he did the snorting the line celebration after scoring a goal once, stopped, did it again. Like, there's a way to do it, and then there's a way to just, okay, put it on steroids here. So this guy, Michigan infielder Mitchell Voigt, he hits a triple, he gets to third base, you have the foul line, and he basically snorts it. A real energetic celebration. I thought it was awesome. But you can't have any fun. I get it, right? It has a drug influence on it, right? With all, you don't have to use your imagination here. Everyone knows what I'm talking about. So there are people that I think just look at it and go, all right, that's sports, that's fun, it's an innocuous celebration. And then you get the crowd. What about the children? Oh, what about the children? So this guy, Mitchell Voigt, had to apologize. I'm sure his manager was like, hey, not a great look. We're not going to punish you for it. Just apologize and you move on, and he apologized. I had no issue with it. I've unfortunately had friends pass away, because of using drugs. So, like, if someone should be offended, right, you would think it's me. And I know that it hits home differently to everybody else. I just don't look at that action and be like, oh, Mitchell Voigt is condoning the use of cocaine there. He did a celebration. It was a fun celebration. He snorted, in air quotes, the third base line, and that was that. Like, I didn't look at that. And if you're like saying, oh, what about the children? Well, then be a dad, be a mom, have a conversation, sit down your kid, and go, if you have a problem with it, explain to them why you have a problem with it. But for this all to be thrown on Mitchell Voigt and how he's like, there's a portion of people that need to cancel him. Oh, give me a break. So he issued the apology, and I think we can move on. But sometimes I expect too much out of people in this world, but I hope everyone can now move on from this Mitchell Voigt situation. All righty, Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. We react to Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
All righty, welcome back in, and it's the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. I'll get to Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft in just a second. Pete Nakos, though, had a tweet out just a few moments ago, college sports business and transfer reporter for On3 Sports. So he put out this. When John Calipari left Kentucky for Arkansas, he secured major NIL funding. Now West Virginia's Darren DeVries is in the mix at Indiana, and NIL budget will factor in. It's flipped on its head in terms of what they're prioritizing with jobs. Now, you heard Darren link to the Iowa job as Fran McCaffrey is now out at Iowa. He is now no longer or is not a candidate. I guess he told him thanks, but no thanks. Because Pete also adds in this, Indiana spent over $5 million on this year's roster, while West Virginia's roster cleared $3 million. Sources tell On3 Sports. Iowa opened, and the best players were making $300,000. That's bottom of the Big Ten. And I think what you're now going to see in the hiring cycle, and it's not what I think, I know what's going to happen, is that these coaches are going to say, if I go here, how much money you guys spending? Who are your boosters? Who are your donors? Who are the big names associated with this university where if I come here, do you have the Tyson family like Arkansas has? Right? Not everyone can have that. Or is there a Mike Rapoli at St. John's that's going to get Rick Pitino who he wants? Right? You're going to need backing there. And if you are a popular coach, you're going to have to see the finances of it. And you're going to have to see, number one, how much money are you going to be able to work with, directly or not? And that's going to be a major thing. And Darren does a good job at West Virginia. Did a very good job at Drake. Got a good job at West Virginia. West Virginia isn't a job that, it's the biggest job in college basketball, but it's a pretty good job for where he's at in his career. Indiana has more of a name recognition. Indiana has also had a lot of coaches where it has not worked out. And they are one of those programs that they rest on what they used to be rather than what they are now, but they do have a very loyal and passionate alumni, right? They do. And you never know how that could work. You don't have to be an alum. Look at Michigan, how they got Bryce Underwood that bag. It was, right, the girlfriend of the wife who went to Michigan, and we all know how that did go down because of who she is dating or married to right now. So that's something for these college coaches where there's going to be there's always a lot of jumping around. But now when you jump around, it's going to be a lot about NIL. And for a school like Iowa, you got to increase those efforts if it's bottom of the barrel in the Big Ten at $300,000. When you got Indiana, they spent over $5 million on their roster this year, and West Virginia spent $3 million on their roster this year. So when the best players are making $300,000 at Iowa, that's the bottom of the Big Ten in this article by Pete. So good stuff by there. The college basketball coaching carousel, it's a very underrated one. I think most of the time when we talk coaching carousel in this national radio landscape, it's usually NFL or college football. The college basketball in the last few years has been a whole lot of fun to watch, especially with how many big names have departed the sport. Coach K leaving, all right, replaced in-house by John Shire. Roy Williams leaving, replaced in-house by Hubert Davis. Jay Wright left. And I know Kyle Neptune just got fired after 3 years, but he was at Fordham and then goes back to Villanova. You keep it inside the family. So we've seen a lot of names and a lot of, more so bigger jobs available the last few years because a lot of these legendary coaches just go, yeah, I'm good with this NIL stuff. And when Roy Williams and Coach K retire, it's like, okay, right, older guy. Makes sense. When Jay Wright leaves the sport at the top of his game after a Final Four run when already having 2 natties underneath his belt, and he leaves because of the NIL stuff, that's when it shows you it's really a new game in college basketball. So you got Villanova open, you got Virginia open, you got Indiana open. We'll see what happens, obviously, with Virginia too. So you got Virginia, Indiana, Villanova. You got Iowa. You got some good jobs open up here, and there could be some more names on the move. Fanta joined us yesterday. He said, don't be surprised if Mick Cronin leaves UCLA. So then UCLA could be open. There's talks about Buzz Williams potentially leaving as well. So there could be some more jobs opening up around the college basketball landscape. So let's get to Daniel Jeremiah's latest mock draft. So Daniel Jeremiah, as good as they come with this mock draft stuff, he had Cam Ward go number 1 to Tennessee. At this point, I think the draft, it really, in terms of players, I think it starts at 2. The only question about 1 is if Tennessee's going to keep the pick or do they trade it to the Giants. Either way, I think Cam Ward's going 1. So then at 2, this is where the real fun starts just in terms of players. And he had the Browns actually still taking Abdul Carter. However, I think Abdul Carter is the preeminent player in this draft, but you just were able to keep Myles Garrett. You don't have a quarterback. Travis Hunter is still on the board. I thought maybe because of the position, maybe this takes him out of the Abdul Carter sweepstakes. But if I'm Cleveland, as I said earlier, even though I do not think Shedeur Sanders is a better player than Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, I would take Shedeur Sanders with the 2nd overall pick because Cleveland right now, you had a good roster for years. You didn't have the quarterback. I know Baker, right, is now viewed better than what he was in Cleveland. And I think he's taken a bigger step the last 2 years in Tampa Bay. He was good, not great. Cleveland swung, and they missed, and then some on Deshaun Watson. You need hope again at this quarterback position. So for them, even though I don't think Shedeur should be the 2nd player in the draft, needing a quarterback makes you do some things. And you're Cleveland. You take a 9,000 risks throughout the years. Why not take another one? Why not make it 9,001 and just draft Shedeur Sanders with the number 2 overall pick? That's what I would do. But Daniel Jeremiah goes Cam Ward 1, Abdul Carter 2. He then has the Giants in at 3 taking Shedeur Sanders. Now, there's a few things here. If Shedeur is available, I think the Giants have to take him. Because I don't anticipate Aaron Rodgers going to the Giants. I think it's a very slim chance that Aaron Rodgers goes to the Giants. I think he's going to be a Pittsburgh Steeler. When we find that out, who the heck knows? If we don't know where Aaron Rodgers is quarterbacking by the draft, I would hope the Pittsburgh Steelers have enough pride to tell Aaron Rodgers to go kick rocks, number one. But assuming, and this is what I'm doing, assuming Aaron Rodgers isn't going to the Giants, then what do the Giants do? I would think Russell Wilson. Does anyone change their opinion about Brian Daboll or Joe Schoen if the Giants sign Russell Wilson? No. I think there will be very below average results with Russell Wilson as your quarterback with only Malik Neighbors to throw the football to. So if I'm Joe Schoen, if I'm Brian Daboll, and both of their heinies are on the hot seat, I'm sitting there trying to say, how could I elongate my job here in the NFL? And that would be taking a quarterback. You tried last year. You weren't in range to get Jaden Daniels or Drake May. You couldn't execute the trade. For whatever reasons, you didn't take J.J. McCarthy. You didn't take Bo Nix. You didn't take Michael Penix Jr. You did get Malik Neighbors, so there is a positive there. But you need a quarterback. And they originally declined that fifth-year option on Daniel Jones. Then Jones makes the playoffs, wins a playoff game. They have to give him a new contract. Then that blows up in their face. No one ever thought Daniel Jones was really the guy, not even those guys running the Giants organization. And last year, they got shut out of the quarterback market. You got to give yourself, if you're Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, and they're not your resources, so if you got to trade up to go do it, be my guess. Because if you don't get the job done this year, then those resources won't be yours, a year from now. So they are treading water. Their heads keep on going underneath, but they keep on coming back up for air. So if I'm the Giants and you can't get Rodgers, you bring in a Russell Wilson, but then if Russ doesn't cut it 2 weeks in, or 2 months in, and this season once again is going south, you need to do a last-second, a last-ditch resort to save yourself. And if Shedeur could come in like the final 8 games of the season or so, the last half of the season, and play well, maybe that elicits enough hope where the Mara family goes, you know what, we'll actually keep Daboll and Schoen for another year. The Giants have to get somewhat of a big name or a long-term plan at the quarterback position. Russ is not a big enough name anymore. He's not a long-term plan. Aaron Rodgers is not a long-term plan, but he is a big enough name, even though his play on the field doesn't suggest that anymore. And it doesn't meet up with that. But if you go draft Shedeur Sanders, that's a long-term plan. So Daniel Jeremiah had Shedeur Sanders going 3. Then as the Patriots going forward, Travis Hunter. And I'd be curious on how the Patriots would use Travis Hunter. Because the Patriots, I thought they would be active on the wide receiver market. They've been trying, but they haven't been able to get a deal done. Couldn't get Cooper Kupp. T. Higgins back with the Bengals. Nothing moving right now on the Brandon Ayuk front. Chris Godwin, they offered him a boatload of cash, but he wanted to stay on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers pirate ship. So Daniel Jeremiah is the Patriot drafting Travis Hunter in F4. Now, if you could pair up, and remember, they just signed Carlton Davis, and they have Christian Gonzalez. So that's as good of a 1-2 punch at the cornerback position in the NFL. Christian Gonzalez is phenomenal. He is a top 5 corner already, top 10 corner, top 5, I would say, already in the NFL. He is phenomenal, Christian Gonzalez. And you have Carlton Davis, who went on the field, he's a good corner. So that's a good 1-2 punch. So how would the Patriots then use Travis Hunter? They have a big need at wide receiver. And you get a different answer every ask. I think the way that Travis Hunter probably would be ideally used in the NFL, would be corner first, and then you give him 20 plays a game, 15 plays a game as a wide receiver. But the need by the Patriots is clearly more at wide receiver than corner. So Daniel Jeremiah's first 5 picks in the draft, he has Tennessee taking Cam Ward, Cleveland going with Abdul Carter, Shedeur Sanders going to the Giants, Patriots taking Travis Hunter, and then he has Jalen Walker going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So another edge rusher for the Jaguars. You have Trayvon Walker, you have Josh Hines Allen, now you're going with Jalen Walker. I look at that, and that's a draft pick that I say to myself, if you're going to go defense there, wouldn't you be better up beefing up your defensive line and addressing the middle of it? I would think Mason Graham, to me, would be the better fit there for Jacksonville. But that's just me. Raiders at 6, Ashton Genty. I think I'm the biggest Ashton Jeanty fan on the planet that doesn't live in Boise. I would think 6 is a little early for Ashton Jeanty. Now, the Raiders could look at that. Okay, we got Geno Smith. We got Brock Bowers. Our best receiver right now is Jacoby Myers. You don't have much at the running back position. The Raiders have so many holes, but when you have so many holes, do you really want to use all that on a running back with the pick that early when you could address it in other areas? Now, at that rate, with who's on the board, do I think Genty's the best player? No. Is he close to being the best player on the board? Yes. I personally have Mason Graham right in front of him. And you could put Tyler Warren into the conversation as well. But I don't think the Raiders are taking Tyler Warren because they have Brock Bowers. So Jeanty at 6, that tells me that they're going to be a run-first team. Because the quarterback is fine in Geno Smith. That's not your long-term option. Ashton Jeanty, then the identity of that offense could really be run with how much of a workhorse and a bell cow back that he was at Boise State. 7, the Jets, they go offensive lineman Aramembu, Missouri, who's been rising up the draft boards since the combine. The Jets taking another offensive lineman in the draft. Tell me another day that ends in Y. Carolina then has Mason Graham falling to 8. If Mason Graham falls to 8, that's a sensational pick for the Carolina Panthers. I would argue that Mason Graham, to me, is the 3rd best player in this draft. I would say 1, Abdul Carter, 2, Travis Hunter, and then 3, Mason Graham. If I'm just going pound for pound, best players in the draft. And then I would, probably put Ashton Jeanty 4 and then Tyler Warren 5. Those would be my 5 best players in this draft. But I look at Mason Graham. You put him and Derek Brown, the same defensive line. I know the Panthers have a lot of holes, but man, that could be a great 1-2 punch in the defensive line. Then you have Jahad Campbell, Alabama linebacker, going 9 to the Saints. Will Campbell going 10 to the Chicago Bears. So that's the top 10 for Daniel Jeremiah. Now let's see other notable picks. Tyler Warren going 14th to the Indianapolis Colts. Who's throwing the football for them? Could be Anthony Richardson to start the season. Then it could be Daniel Jones after that. Will Johnson, I think the injuries catch up to him. They have him projected falling all the way to 15th pick to Atlanta. Be a good pick, good value pick there by Atlanta because many people before the season started had Will Johnson going in the top 5 of the draft. Other notable names, Colston Loveland going to Seattle with the 18th pick. I'm not the biggest fan of Colston Loveland in the NFL. Obviously, I liked him at Michigan, but he didn't pop off to me how I thought he was going to when they first got him. Omarion Hampton going to the Broncos in at 20th. I think he's going to be a first-round running back. He is a dual-threat running back, not only running the football, but catching the ball out of the backfield. And the Broncos could use something now. Is Javonte Williams, I don't think he's still there, but that was a UNC running back that they took a little while back. Yeah, he's with the Dallas Cowboys now. But Omarion Hampton, you put him with Bo Nix, that'd be a pretty good 1-2 punch for the Denver Broncos. Then here's a notable one, Jackson Dart going to Pittsburgh at 21. And I talked about that earlier. If I'm looking at the draft board, I don't think Jackson Dart should be in the top 10. I don't think he should be in the top 15. The first team I look at outside of the top 15 where I say to myself, okay, I could see it. And really the only team, because now the Seahawks are out of it with them getting Sam Darnold, the Pittsburgh Steelers in at 21. And DJ Daniel Jeremiah, Jackson Dart going 21 to the Steelers. Tatora McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona, like a month and a half ago, he's a top 10 pick, top 15 pick. Daniel Jeremiah has him fallen all the way to 22. And this is what DJ said. I wouldn't be shocked if McMillan goes in the top 8 picks or if he slides into this section of round 1. There is a wide range of potential landing spots with a former Arizona star, but the team that drafts him will be getting a receiver with incredible size, body control, and ball skills. So you could team up Ladd McConkey. Let me tell you what about that Ladd McConkey and McMillan. That would be a fun 1-2 punch. Any other notable picks here? Kelvin Banks falling all the way to 25 to Texans. So he stays in the state of Texas, and that's your replacement for Laramie Tunsil. And then Michael Williams falling all the way to 28, the edge rusher out of Georgia to the Detroit Lions. And then Kenneth Grant, that would be a steal. I have a top 15 grade on Kenneth Grant. I think Kenneth Grant's going to be a stud. Daniel Jeremiah has him going 30th to the Buffalo Bills. And then Shamar Stewart, who was rising after the combine, right? In all these mock drafts, Eagles 32. Like the Eagles, need another good defensive player. that falls in the draft when people thought that maybe he should have been picked a little bit earlier. So there you go on that front on the Daniel Jeremiah latest mock draft. Hey, by the way, with the Eagles, congratulations to a friend of the show in Brandon Graham. I got a chance to catch up with him a few times during Super Bowl week. I saw him in the team hotel because that's where we're staying. And BG kind of gave me a wink when I said, "Are you playing?" He wouldn't give me a yes or a no, but he just kind of winked at me. So that basically told me that Brandon Graham was going to play. But, it's weird when I root for the Patriots to love Brandon Graham as much as I do. Because he strip-sacked my quarterback, Tom Brady, and prevented Tom Brady from winning another Super Bowl. But living in Philadelphia as long as I did, covering the Eagles too, there is maybe, I don't know how many more genuine people I've been around in the game of football than Brandon Graham. Dude is an unbelievable leader, unbelievable story. First-round pick out of Michigan. Eagles fans killed him the first few years because he didn't play well. Earl Thomas was a stud, and people thought they should have drafted him. And Brandon Graham goes on to be one of the more important players in the history of the Eagles franchise. He is the biggest player in the history of the franchise. He strip-sacked Tom Brady, all right, to win them their first Super Bowl, and then had the injury after having what was an awesome season this year, comes back, plays in the Super Bowl, wins another Super Bowl, and he elected to ride off into the sunset today. So 2 Super Bowl championships, turned his career around, and will go down as, I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, to be clear, but he'll go down as one of the most legendary Philadelphia Eagles of all time. So congratulations to a friend of the show in Brandon Graham announcing his retirement today. I listened to his entire press conference. Real emotional, genuine stuff, and that's who BG is. So congratulations to Brandon Graham. Okay, we'll take a break. We'll come on back. We'll do a little overreaction, proper reaction. It is the Zach Gelb Show right here on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. "45 seconds remaining. "30 seconds remaining. "15 seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Another NFL week is complete, which means it's another week to freak out about your favorite team. Which takes are truly crazy.
But sometimes a game can be so bad, it's almost good. You know what I'm saying? No.
And which are so crazy, they might be right.
He's 6'5", he's 245 pounds. He's probably a Popeye's biscuit away from being a tight end.
Zach lets you know in this week's edition of Overreaction or Proper Reaction.
All right, little overreaction, proper reaction on a Tuesday. Let's get to Samto. What do we got?
All right, well, let's start out here with Stephon Diggs. As we know, he's a free agent coming off a torn ACL after being traded from Buffalo to Houston last offseason. Now, Diggs, who clearly was unhappy in Buffalo and scrubbed all of his Bills photos and posts from social media after the trade, he has now re-added all the Bills content back.
Oh, stop.
Fueling speculation that he could return to Buffalo. Overreaction, proper reaction. The Bills should sign Diggs back this offseason.
Going to be a big wings week for me, by the way. Thursday, I'm going to John Rothstein's favorite place for wings, which was called Bar Coastal. Now it's Plug Uglies, but it's the same menu as Bar Coastal. So I'm going there, getting the Kerry's Way wings, and I'm taking a little trip to the Poconos this weekend. Just a day trip with a few buddies, and I'm going to one of my favorite wing spots called BVH, which has the legendary Johnny Hot Sauce, and those wings are just absolutely delicious, and it's a big sports bar there. So I'm going to watch some of the NCAA tournament there on Saturday. So a lot of wings, a lot of blue cheese, a lot of wings. That's what I think of when I think of Buffalo. But Stephon Diggs should not be able to enjoy those wings in Buffalo anymore. He was a cancer at the end in the locker room. He was a good teammate before then, right? Josh Allen did wonders for his career. He did wonders for Josh Allen's career. Clearly there was an issue, though, between the two at the end. Now, can people mature? Can people change? Sure. But we've seen a pattern with Stephon Diggs. Goes to Minnesota, there's an expiration date. Then once out of Minnesota, has a problem. Goes to Buffalo, there's an expiration date. Then he has a problem. And then unfortunately got hurt this year. I don't think the Bills showed this year they don't need Stephon Diggs. They can get back to the AFC Championship game and lose the AFC Championship game again without Stephon Diggs. So I would say even if Stephon reaches out, he tries to do the whole take me back. Thanks, but no thanks. We're good without you. So the Bills should sign Stephon Diggs back this offseason. Absolutely not. I will go overreaction.
Now, the Eagles, they won the Super Bowl thanks to a young core of stars. But like every winning team, Philly lost a ton this offseason. Starters like Mekhi Becton, Josh Sweat, Milton Williams, Darius Slay, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, and Isaiah Rodgers are all gone, as is offensive coordinator Kalen Moore off to New Orleans. Now, early this afternoon, as you discussed, friend of the show Brandon Graham officially announced his retirement.
I walked into this city as a young man with dreams, big dreams, a little bit of nervousness, and a whole lot of fire in my heart. I had no idea back then what this journey would bring. I didn't know how many times I would be tested. I didn't know how much I would grow. And I surely didn't know how deeply I would fall in love with these fans and the team in this city, Philadelphia, and everybody from the bottom of my heart. I just want to thank y'all. EAGLES, Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. My last one. BG out, baby.
I have one criticism of that.
Uh-oh. He spelled Eagles right?
And I listened to the entire press conference. It was very moving stuff. But when he did the Eagles chant at the end, and that's just the way that Brandon Graham speaks, he's like the nicest guy. He always sounds nice and he'll rip your head off on the football field. But you got to give like the E-A-G-L-E-S, Eagles! You can't just basically say it in your normal cadence in the voice. That's the only gripe. 9.9 out of 10 in the retirement speech up until he tried to spell Eagles. At least he got the spelling right.
I will say his last official words as a Philadelphia Eagle were BG out.
That's pretty
epic.
boss.
That's epic.
Whenever I leave the Infinity Sports Network, ZG out. I guess I got to say peace.
Well, especially the last time, whenever that ends up being ZG out.
Until like 3 months.
MS out.
Because the last time I left, I was gone for 3 months. Just when I was out, they sucked me back in.
That's what happens. Now, overreaction, proper reaction. The Eagles will take a step back in 2025 after everything they've lost.
So what do you consider taking a step back? Like, if they don't win the Super Bowl, that's a step back, right?
Not necessarily. The Eagles.
Well, I still view them as an elite team, a top 3 team in the NFC. Is that the standard?
Will they be they were the best team in the NFC last year, right? Pretty clear. Will they be the best team in the NFC? Will they be a top 2 or 3 team in the NFC? They don't have to win the Super Bowl to take a step back.
So then overreaction. Because I think they may not win the Super Bowl. They may not go as far as what they did last year, right? They could lose the NFC Championship game. They could even lose in the divisional round. But you look at that team and that nucleus, you still got Saquon Barkley. You also got Jalen Hurts. You got A.J. Brown. You got Devontae Smith. You got Lane Johnson. You know, your offensive line's unbelievable, even with losing Becton. And you look defensively, you got Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith. You still got Cooper DeJean. And Nakobe Dean coming off the injury. He was very good before he got hurt. You still got a ton there. Oh, you kept Zach Bond, by the way. This is what, it's amazing what people get upset about. Oh, they lost a lot. Yeah, you win, you lose things. You lose coordinators. You lose players. But they still have an unbelievable team. So I'll go overreaction there.
All right,
I have a proper reaction, overreaction for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, let's do it.
Question, just for people keeping score at home. When did you shave? Because until the YouTube chat just brought this up, Billy Wolf, I had no clue that you got rid of this beard.
This was like 2 weeks ago.
Really?
No. I shaved this weekend. But still, you saw me yesterday and still had no idea.
Yeah, Monday. Had no clue that Moist Mike elected to take that hot towel and go get a shave. Overreaction or proper reaction, Alex Azarum. You like Michael Samter better with the beard.
No, I actually kind of like the scruff. I don't like yesterday it was more clean shaven.
It was too much baby face?
That was a bit scary.
Okay.
But I like the scruff.
So you like the scruff. You think the bushy beard, he maybe look a little homeless.
No, it's not that. It's just.
Will you ever say a mean word about someone? Just wondering.
I was going to give an explanation.
Yeah. Azarm's like, yeah, just wait till you leave at 6 o'clock. I'll stab you in the back. All right, continue what you had to say about
No, it's just that during COVID, my dad never grew out a beard.
Okay.
And then he did. And I'm like, actually it kind of suits you.
I grew out a beard during COVID. My hair was going over my ears because none of the barbershops were open. I actually hired someone to come to my house to cut my hair after a while because I was just losing my mind. Absolutely losing my mind.
It was more my hair during COVID. I had a man bun for a couple weeks.
Did you really?
Yeah.
So you were like a wannabe soccer player.
Yeah.
You're finally living out your dreams.
I had a full-on fro. You ever see my pictures of me from the pandemic?
No, I don't think so.
Full-on fro.
Oh, yeah. Didn't you look like the famous painter?
Oh, Bob Ross?
Yeah.
Yeah. A little bit of
The
beard.
famous
A little bit
painter.
Yeah. The famous painter. Bob Ross. I'm going to paint a little tree right here. He's going to live very happily.
You did look very Bob Ross-like during COVID.
Yeah.
I will say that. All right, next question.
All right, well, your Patriots may be stuck in no man's land in the draft, sitting at number 4 and hoping either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter fall to them. However, some reports say the Pats would look to trade back if both players are gone. Now, Sports Illustrated proposed a trade in which the Patriots would trade the 4th pick to San Francisco for Brandon Ayuk, the 11th pick, and a second-round pick so that the Niners can move up for Carter or Hunter. Overreaction, proper reaction. The Pats should make that trade even if Carter and Hunter are still on the board.
I'm taking a 30-second timeout. So this trade is they would swap ones and then also give up a second? That's the deal? Swap ones and give up a second?
And Brandon Ayuk.
Well, they would be getting Brandon Ayuk, yeah.
No. So the Patriots would only be giving up the 4th pick. They would be getting Ayuk, the 11th, and a second-rounder.
Oh, okay. I misread this then. Because if I was going to say to get Brandon Ayuk, I'd have to swap ones and give up a 2. No, thank you. Who? So this is only if Hunter and Abdul Carter off the board.
No, so apparently the Niners want one of those 2.
Oh,
so
okay.
the Niners would want to move up to get one of those 2. So if you're the Patriots and Carter...
So I'm passing up on Carter or Hunter.
Correct.
Then no. And if Carter and Hunter are off the board, I would actually think about that. I would not want to move back from 4 to 11 because I think that's going a little bit too far back. But if you're telling me I can't get Carter or Hunter, I could still probably get an offensive lineman at 11, and I'd be getting Brandon Ayuk, his contract, and a second-round pick. That I could live with. But if Carter and Hunter are still on the board there, yeah, that's the Pats should make this trade, even if Carter and Hunter are still on the board. That is a overreaction.
Now, many, not you though, have ripped the Bengals for giving both Jamar Chase and T. Higgins huge deals, thinking that they would have to trade star rusher Trey Hendrickson, who, of course, he requested a trade.
Mm-hmm.
However, now The Athletic is reporting that the team and Hendrickson are working on a deal to keep
Diana
the league's leading
Rossini is
sacker.
reporting this.
Huh?
Diana Rossini is reporting this from The Athletic.
Oh, so it's from Diana Rossini. Okay, yes, great.
But no. Diana Rossini and Chase Daniel.
Yeah.
These social media videos that they put out that are a minute long, I don't know if it's just the cadence that is weird to me, and I have no reason to hate Chase Daniel, but Chase Daniel in these videos are absolutely insufferable. Absolutely. He almost looks just like he has no clue what's going on, and then he gives this crazy take. These videos, I'm kind of laughing at them, and Rossini is very plugged in. But a lot of them are coming off as clickbaity kind of videos. That's all I'll say on that.
I mean, she is plugged in and he is kind of a hot take guy, but it's a good combination because you get both sides of it, I guess.
I don't know. Any of those videos, I find myself just yelling.
Well, so
yelling and punching the air.
Well, listen, at the end of the day, I think that's kind of what they want. The whole idea of getting you to yell and punch the air is the goal, maybe. Mm-hmm. Now, overreaction, proper reaction. If the Bengals keep Hendrickson, you would consider them a top 3 team in the AFC.
That's an overreaction because I would still put the top 3 teams in the NFL right now. The Kansas City, how about those Chiefs? The Buffalo Bills and the Baltimore Ravens. They're more complete teams than the Cincinnati Bengals. Even if the Bengals keep Trey Hendrickson, we saw what happened last year. Their defense is still Swiss cheese. So that's a overreaction for me.
Now, secondary question. Who do you have more faith in the playoffs, the Bengals or the Ravens?
The Bengals, because I just trust Joe Burrow more.
So it's interesting that we consider the Ravens the better team, but we have more faith in the Bengals.
Well, I defended Lamar as long as I could. The last 2 years, home AFC Championship game, Mahomes tells me after the game he knew he just had to be a game manager in order to get that victory. That offense did squat. And I know you could also blame Monken and Zay Flowers in that one. And then this year, forget about the Chiefs. You lost to the Bills, too. So, yeah, I know that it's been a while, and Burrow, they got to get off to better starts, and they got to protect him, and he's got to stay healthy. But when he's in the postseason, the dude gets to the AFC Championship game, bare minimum, it feels like. So, beat Buffalo. Also, well, I can't really credit them getting that victory up against the Ravens because Huntley was playing. But they've also beat Kansas City, and they've been in a Super Bowl. So, yeah, Burrow, in one game, I have more confidence in than Lamar Jackson.
Now, last one, we talked about Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft. Well, the great Mel Kiper released his latest first-round mock draft.
Todd.
And he had a big, big surprise in the top 10 with the Saints drafting your favorite quarterback, Jackson Dart, 9th overall.
I think I'm Tracy Morgan. I'm getting food poisoning.
Now, Dart's been flying up draft boards since the combine and has emerged as the clear number 3 quarterback, although Aaron Murray thinks Jalen Milroe's number 3. The Saints did just restructure Derek Carr's contract that would make it tough to get rid of him after the 2026. Now, listen, we know now how you feel about Jackson Dart going 9th overall, so I'm going to kind of change the question up here. But do you think the Saints should draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds? Overreaction, proper reaction. The Saints should draft a quarterback in the first 2 rounds.
I'm going to go overreaction. If they take Jackson Dart at 9, I'm going to erupt on draft night like it's a volcano. And there's going to be a lot of takes on the internet from you, boy. The second round pick, I could see it, but I don't love any of these quarterbacks. And Derek Carr, even though we crap at him a lot, he's not great. He's not horrible, though. So let him be a stopgap guy another year. They have a lot of holes. I would use that elsewhere. That would just be me. All righty. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. Come on back. We got one more segment to play. Update time first. Here's the Act Man, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, Brandon Graham was almost as much a staple in Philly as cheesesteaks. The soon-to-be 37-year-old lineman announced his retirement today after 15 years, all with the Eagles, including 2 Super Bowl victories. He returned from a torn tricep to play in '59, where he suffered a recurrence of that injury. Graham played in more games than anyone else in Eagles history, with 206 over his 15 NFL seasons. It didn't take Garrett Bradbury long to find a new home, signing a 2-year deal with the Patriots after he was released by the Vikings yesterday. Minnesota taking a flyer on Jeff Okudah, signing the oft-injured corner who was the 3rd pick of the 2020 NFL Draft. The Dodgers opened their title defense with a 4-1 win over the Cubs today in Japan. The first 4 tips off tonight with St. Francis and Alabama State, with the winner to face Auburn on Thursday. The second part of the doubleheader features San Diego State and North Carolina. The Tar Heels have a rich tradition, and perhaps that helped them in their controversial selection. They did go to the finals 3 years ago, while the Aztecs went to the Sweet 16 last year after going to the finals the year before. The Cavaliers are in L.A. to meet the Clippers after their 16-game winning streak ended over the weekend. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Oh, my God, we're back again.
I have a very boring bracket this year. So, I did roll with a few upsets in the first round. I'm not going to give you a 10 beating a 7. Or a 9 beating an 8. I'm talking about actual upsets. I took Colorado State to beat Memphis. I took Drake to beat Missouri. Other notable upsets: Yale to beat A&M. Everyone's on UC San Diego to defeat Michigan. I did not take them. I actually put Michigan in the Sweet 16. Other notable upsets I took High Point over Purdue. And that's pretty much it in terms of the big upsets. Now, my Sweet 16, I have Auburn, Michigan, Ole Miss, Michigan State in that South region. So Auburn, Michigan, Ole Miss, Michigan State. I have Michigan State defeating Ole Miss, and then Auburn defeating Michigan. So that leads to a 1-2 Auburn and Michigan State. I have the Sparty Party with Tom Izzo going to the Final Four. Now, this region, up until the last 2-3 weeks, I was all in on Auburn. The way that Auburn lost in the SEC tournament, how they just could not finish, that was a cause for concern. It's not that they just lost 3 out of their last 4. It's how they lost that last game. They didn't play their best brand of basketball, and they still had a chance to win, and they couldn't get the job done. So that was concerning. You know, if there's going to be a region of chaos, like a 6 seed or a 7 seed or an 8 seed, you know, like a higher seed going to the Final Four, this would be the region, I think. I think there could be a lot of funky stuff to go on in this region, but everyone's going to pick either Auburn or Michigan State. I ended up going Michigan State. In the West, I tried to do something outside of Florida and St. John's. I couldn't get there. I took Florida, Maryland, Texas Tech, and St. John's. Lame 1, 2, 3, 4 in the Sweet 16. I had the Johnnies. I love that kid Zuby, and I got a chance to see him in person a few times at the Big East tournament. You know, RJ Lewis is the Big East Player of the Year, but Zuby Ojefor, he was unbelievable. Aaron Scott of St. John's, he's someone that I think is going to be their difference maker in this NCAA tournament. And either his shots are going to fall, they're not. But I have St. John's finding a way to get to the Elite Eight where they're going to just come up short to Florida. I have Florida going to the Final Four. Right now, Florida's playing the best basketball in the country. So give me Florida matching up against Michigan State in San Antonio in the Final Four. Sweet 16 in the East. I have Duke, Oregon, BYU, Alabama. So that gets a little funky. So got 1, 2, but you got 5 and 6. And I have then lame 1, 2, I know, Duke, Alabama playing. I don't think they're, even though Florida's playing the best basketball in the country right now, I don't think there's a better team for pound in the country than Duke right now. So I have Duke beating Alabama, Duke going to the Final Four. Now, I get to the Midwest. My Sweet 16. This could be the funkiest Sweet 16 that I have. Starts off with the 1 in Houston, a 5 in Clemson, 6 Illinois, 10 Utah State. I then have Houston going up against Illinois in the Elite Eight, Houston going to the Final Four. I know, right? You have all these 1 seeds. I have 3 1 seeds and a 2 going to the Final Four. Lame, I know. But on the right side of the bracket, if we're sitting in San Antonio doing the shows on Thursday and Friday, and Duke's not there, I'll be stunned. And also if Houston's not there. Like Houston's toughest matchup potentially to get to the Final Four is Tennessee. I'm sorry. You know, I know Tennessee plays in the SEC. I'm not trusting Rick Barnes in a big game. And also, it's like, all right, Clemson has some experience. You know, some people picking Will Wade to win that matchup against McNeese. Purdue doesn't intimidate me. You know, I like Casper from Illinois. But you could argue that Houston's toughest matchup is just getting by Gonzaga in the second round, the round of 32 in that region, if Gonzaga defeats Georgia. So my Final Four, I know it's not exciting in terms of, ooh, you got some crazy seed there. But if you give me a Final Four of Michigan State, Florida, Duke, Houston, I'm very happy as a college basketball fan. Because here's what you realize. Early on in the tournament, sure, it's awesome when Loyola Chicago wins. Right? It's awesome when you get some of these Cinderella stories. And hey, if they could take it to a national championship game, and you get a national championship game like we saw between Duke and Butler, right, the Gordon Hayward shot at the end would have been the greatest shot of the history of the NCAA tournament, and it just did not fall. Like, you give me Cinderellas like that end up giving us games like that, I'm all for it. I love to see as far as a Cinderella could go. But if you're asking me what makes the better tournament, it's early upsets in the first or second round. And then once you get towards the Sweet 16, then I want the bigger boys to prevail. And if you give me 3 1s and a 2 in the Final Four, I think it makes for a more watchable, compelling, and a lesser chance of a blowout in the Final Four. Like, could Florida run Michigan State off the court? Absolutely. But if you give me Duke, Houston, I don't care what the number is. I'm hammering the over. I'll make myself a cocktail, have some nachos, some wings, enjoy that semifinal game, and I'd be very happy watching Duke and Houston because there's going to be a lot of points. So in my Final Four, Florida, Michigan State, I have Florida advancing to the national championship game. I got Duke and Houston. I have Duke defeating Houston, and that leads what I think would be an epic national championship game between Duke and Florida. And I would then take the Dukies to defeat Florida, the Blue Devils to defeat the Gators. And I think Duke would win the game by 2 points. We'll see when Cooper Flagg comes back. I think it's John Shire's time to go win a national championship. He's had good teams the last few years. Now you got to get the job done in March. When they're healthy, and even when they're not healthy, we just saw them run through the ACC. I don't think there's a better team in the country this year than Duke. So I feel like a lot of people are picking the same Final Four, so that means there will be a ton of chaos. But I got Michigan State, Florida, Duke, Houston, Florida, Duke, national championship game, and Duke winning it all by 2 points. So that's what I'm rocking and rolling with in my bracket. All righty, that will do it for a Tuesday edition of the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Big thanks to Aaron Murray for stopping by, doing a little prospect profile on the 3 Georgia players that are projected to go in the first round. Fun show today. We opened it up talking about the Cleveland Browns, so I'm all in on them taking Shedeur Sanders at 2. We did the 5 college basketball coaches under the most pressure in the NCAA tournament this year. And we did our Aaron Rodgers pie chart too. 65% chance with the Steelers, 23% chance with the New York Football Giants, 10% chance going to Minnesota, and then 2% retiring. Once again, we got new phone lines here at the network, all throughout the network. If you want to call, 888-710-4ISN. That's 888-710-4ISN, 888-710-4476. Alex Azarin, thank you very much. Michael Samter, thank you very much. Rich Ackerman, thank you very much. And each and every one of you for listening, calling, tweeting, YouTube chatting, however you consume the show, we appreciate you. We'll be back tomorrow on a hump day on a Wednesday. Zach Gelb Show, Infinity Sports Network. We out. Bye-bye. Peace.